July 25th meeting to order.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business is minutes. I didn't do anything.
Sent it to them,
Okay,
sorry.
that's okay. You all set?
I'm all set.
Read and reviewed?
Yes.
Motion?
Motion to accept minutes from 6/27/18.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. Small project, NACC 216, 1003 Osgood Street.
Recall this is, plan here, 3:40 PM, there it is. Oh, and we have photos too. And we did. There. This is the development that kept the big barn that used to be over in the Treadwell's Plaza there when it was redeveloped. There's going to be a early learning center in there, and associated with that is a playground area, which is going to be off to the side in an area that's already partially lawn, and what's not lawn is knotweed. But they're proposing some fencing and guardrail and a stone path, but I'll let the applicants give you the details.
Thank you, Jennifer. For the record, my name is Phil Henry with Civil Design Group. I have with me today Lorraine Miles, the owner of the Early Learning Center that is proposed to be in the space that is as seen as the red barn from Osgood Street. As part of that project or that build-out, we submitted a small projects application with Conservation to construct a 1,900 square foot trapezoidal-shaped playground that, as you can see in the overhead. And it's going to be positioned on the southerly side of the property, or as you're looking at the site, to the right of the parking lot. We had originally submitted an application earlier this month, and then Jennifer had emailed me yesterday saying that she visited the site and she had some concerns about the grade change and the knotweed. So I requested that I meet out with her there today, and we did meet. And then when we got back to the office, we made some minor modifications, and what you see in front of you is the latest plan that we submitted earlier today. It's substantially the same as what was originally submitted, but we broke it down into a little bit more detail, and I can walk you through that. If everyone can see the trapezoidal darkest black line there, that's the area of the 6-foot-high stockade fence that will be enclosing the playground itself. The honeycomb area is about 1,100 square foot area that is currently knotweed, and on site we had discussed in order to remove that knotweed as effectively as we can, we'd be going in there and excavating it out as much as we could. And then as they're excavating, they're actually going to restore the soil to the existing grade. There's also an area to the left of the honeycomb, which is, depending on how you could see it, it's just a solid gray hatch. That's the existing lawn area. That's the lawn that is currently mowed and maintained. And we are proposing to leave it as is. The original plan, we had graded longitudinally. We were matching the parking spaces grade, and then as we were going to the south or to the right, as you're looking on the plan, I was holding a flatter grade. But actually, we decided to leave the grades as is, which is about a 6-foot drop from front to back. So there's not going to be any substantial filling at all. And in fact, the only area where we're modifying is that slanted hatch up on the top right corner. That area signifies a little depression area where when they built the original project, they filled into a point and they didn't create a smooth transition into that naturalized area. So there's about an 8-inch lip there. So that, what we do propose to do is just level that out. It's a very small area. It's about 40 feet long by, I say, 8 feet wide on average. So we are proposing to just create a smoother transition there to the fence. And based on the area calcs and a depth, I estimate there was about 8 yards of loam and seed that's going to be required. So a fairly small amount. Other improvements, access to the playground would be via the stone walkway that we're proposing closest to Osgood Street. Despite it being close to Osgood Street, it is still 33 feet off the edge of road. So we think it's significantly set back enough for safety reasons. And Lorraine had went to an informal meeting with the department heads, and they advised to put some guardrail in front of the playground and along the sides where the parking is. So we're proposing a wooden guardrail on both of those sides there. We also are proposing to install erosion control on the downward sides, the down gradient sides of the project, which as you're looking at the page is to the top and to the right, adjacent to the stone wall. That's the high-level overview. I'm happy to answer any specifics, and Lorraine is here to explain more of the operation of the playground, either the playground or her proposed use.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joe?
Really one question and one comment. Question, I think it's drafting, everybody want you to clarify. On your existing additions, right where you're showing your buffer zone, no builds and no disturbance, you've got something labeled as a 100-foot non-disturbance buffer zone?
Yeah.
Is that because of the lake, or do you really mean just a BBW?
That, we did not do a survey out there because the as-built is just a few years old. We had reached out to the department, and they had provided that as-built. So
Okay.
that's not our.
That's not yours, okay.
We use that as a base plan. It's scaled very well, but we were not able to edit anything.
Okay, so
That's watershed special permit.
that is?
Yeah.
So this,
It's our 100-foot buffer zone as well, but they have a 100-foot non-disturb.
so my question then is, this work that's being proposed within that's under this?
So
special
planning's
permit?
already seen this as well, and they don't have any concerns because it's not development of the
Okay,
site.
good.
It's going to remain grass.
And I should note that we are outside the 50-foot.
I noticed that,
Okay.
but thank you for pointing that out. And my comment was just to the operators. It's very ambitious to try to get the knotweed out, but recognize that may be an ongoing effort as time goes on. So I'm not sure if,
I think, from what I've seen of other restorations of this sort of small nature, if they're continually mowing it.
just keep knocking it
Because
down.
if you look at the mowed area directly adjacent to the knotweed will move all over everything. The knotweed's not there because it's mowed every single week. So whatever comes in is gone immediately. So I think if they get as much of they can out of there, maybe spend some time with a little black plastic baking in the sun to kill, some of the seed stock in there. That, and they're going to have to continually mow. There's no doubt about it.
And, I'll say, I imagine it would come out in the discussion eventually, is that obviously once we excavate it out, proper handling and disposal of it is
I have
very,
that
very
in my
important.
recommendations, that you're going to have to bag it and throw it in the dumpster or get rid of it in some way that it's going to be
Or it's going to be burned.
burned.
You can break it off and stick it in your driveway, and it'll grow. Pretty nasty stuff. And that's all I have. No questions?
I'm glad that you decided not to change the elevation, because that would have taken a lot of fill and a lot of excavation. And then this would have been a little bit of a contentious, because it's right next to the lake. But aside from that, no questions.
Is the wooden guardrail going to be substantial enough to keep anything out, being so close to the street?
Well, it is going to be 33 feet off the street. And actually, you could see there, the existing parking spaces are closer to the street than would be the playground. Also, Osgood Street along that is curved, right? So, and we're on the inside of that curve, so which also helps as well. So, That's the only, I mean, I can only comment on that. I mean, we've done all we can to push it back and to create a safe as we can environment.
Okay, thank you.
Doug? Motion?
I move that we consider this to be a small project under the letter L.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous.
And accordingly, I move that we approve the small project as identified with a, Jen, what do you want for pre and post?
So for special conditions, I had a erosion control 12-inch composter bark melt sock, pre and post construction inspections, and a requirement to have the knotweed bagged and, incinerated.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous. Well said. Thank you. Next one is NACC 115, 148 Main Street.
I want to grab back our photos there. Put them in that one. Just one is fine. Oh, yeah, so, sorry Doug, I forgot about that.
For this filing. Yeah, she just handed it. Savannah just gave it her.
There's just two of them.
Yeah.
Doug has them. There's a lot of photos in this application. We just took a couple today that we thought were kind of showed things that the photos in the application didn't. So these are the new owners of condos in the stone building at the back of the Sutton Pond condominiums. So not the big brick buildings, this is the two little, known as Site B, or I was surprised they call it Unit G2, but it's not part of the main brick mill buildings, it's off to the side. It was existing, it was in the floodplain back when it was developed. It was an existing structure that they turned into condos. We were there today, that's all the lovely old beams and everything is still there. When they were built and permitted, and there's no real detail on the site plans from back in the day, but this was quite a while ago. These two decks, which you see on this site, were existing. They show up in aerials forever. So these owners have just purchased this, which has been neglected for some time. The entire place is overgrown with multiflora rose, bittersweet, blackberries, you name it. It's all over the place, poison ivy. But right next door is a unit, exactly the same footprint, exactly the same thing, with nice stone pathways, manicured gardens. All that is under this site, and they're just seeking to reclaim it. They'd like to replace the rotted deck in the same exact footprint on the same exact, it's just basically on footings that are right on the ground. What we were trying to show with the deck is, right in front of the deck is the pond. Basically, there's a retaining wall, and then you step down like 4 feet and you're standing in cattails. So it's sort of very limited room to work, but it's all existing on site now. They just want to reclaim it. The only thing they would like to add is a dry laid field stone wall all along the edge of the pond on top of the retaining wall. And then along, they show it in their filing, right in the location of the Japanese barberry. They'd like to put another little stone wall along the existing edge of the patio, which they're going to also resurface. But the wall would sit on top of, what would you call it, Savannah? That's already out there, some kind of blocks that are already.
Cement, almost just big blocks. Oh, the blocks.
Yeah, there's some kind of, almost like a
granite block.
granite curbing maybe along the edge of the patio is where their wall would be. So they will need I think along the edge, at least along the edge of the pond, some erosion control, just given the amount of disturbance to sort of pull out the vegetation and that sort of thing that's going to happen out there. But there's nothing new proposed. Everything's more just sort of getting outside of the walls. I'm sorry, there's nothing new proposed. Did I represent that properly?
Very much.
Joe?
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I take no exception to the work that's proposed. I'm more focused on, what level of protection, if any, is needed, being so close to the water. And does the project involve any excavation, or is it all just basic heavy landscape work?
Heavy landscape work, just
Yeah.
pulling out what's already there that's overgrown.
No regrading, no ripping out pavements and putting pavers or whatever, putting
No,
things in?
No pavers. The only thing we will do is clean up the existing patio that's there because it's all
Oh.
broken and.
So we say clean it up, like by taking it out and recasting?
No,
or
actually,
It
just
might be
resurfacing.
resurfaced.
Just resurfacing
Just resurfacing.
over what's there?
Over what's there.
It's pretty, the retaining wall that's along the edge of the pond would be easy just to put once they get some of that vegetation away from the wall, they can just run a compost sock there.
I'm not even sure that's needed if there's no excavation, but
Well,
that's what I was driving at. It sounds like it's minimal
I think
type
it's,
of work.
yeah, I mean, I think it's a good idea to have it there, because just even the concrete, if they are resurfacing the patio, for whatever reason, I think there should be some limit of work, and also kind of give a location in front of which you can put the wall, so that the wall doesn't end up being, it couldn't be in the resource area, but just so that the wall is enough away from the edge that there's no concerns. And it's dry laid, right? There's no mortaring or of
That's
any
correct.
kind in
Yes,
that.
dry.
No more.
So it'd be your standard, almost no disturbance wall.
So this is a duplex, for lack of a better term? Two
Yeah.
units in a single building?
That's correct.
But part of the larger condo association? Are you guys stand alone as a condo association?
No,
No.
we are part of the condo
Part
association.
of the larger condo association?
But
Yes.
within those parameters, we ascertain control of that land.
And the unit in the same buildings is occupied and has been for a while, and
That's
this
correct.
fell into disrepair just by neglect?
That unit was foreclosed upon prior to us purchasing it, so it has fallen into disrepair over the last 18 months or so.
Okay, the other unit?
The unit we're
The
in.
unit we
unit
just
you're in,
purchased,
okay.
correct.
We just purchased.
Okay.
The unit that is existing, long-term, 10 or 12-year living people, it's,
So there's no concern for coordinating any work on their property? Theirs
No.
is well cared for and...
Yeah, theirs is beautifully landscaped.
beautiful.
Yeah, we're also...
They have a nice apple tree at the edge of the pond we
We
were
want it to
noting
look
today.
like theirs.
But I did let them know that we would be looking, given that we have some control over this, for a native landscape plan, so that we don't wind up with anything in the pond that we wouldn't want to see in the pond.
I just asked the question where the property is owned in a condo association, and in order of conditions we're about to issue is going to get recorded at the registry. It may encumber that other unit, so I just want to be careful.
It's on an order, it's small project permit
Small
for
project.
landscaping.
Doesn't even get recorded.
Doesn't get recorded.
Beautiful. I'm all set.
No questions?
No questions?
No question. You can't.
Oh, you can't, that's right, you live there now. Okay, motion?
So I will offer a motion to consider this as a small project under the letter L in the regs.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous.
And I
Except
will,
for
I will move
Doug's.
that we,
And one abstention.
we have one abstention. I will move that we approve the project as proposed with the conditions to be laid out by the administrator.
So they are, access through the side yard fence, no equipment allowed in the rear yard due to the proximity to the resource area. No materials should be stockpiled within the yard. I think you have enough driveway area if they did need to bring some material in.
That's soil material.
Right, whatever
Yeah.
they need to stockpile, they have area, they have a garage area, and then they have an area next to that, which
Two parking spots.
probably serve for some, if they needed some immediate site stuff. Approval of a planting plan, erosion control, and pre- and post-construction inspection.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? That's unanimous.
One, record has to show one
And
abstention.
one abstention.
Okay.
Just want to make sure. It's
All right.
important when you're the one
So we'll
abstaining.
draft that up and get that to you in the next few
It's
days.
important.
Great, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just,
Thank you very much.
just by way of compliment, one of the best small project applications I've seen.
Ah, thank you.
I taught her everything.
No, next one
Great
is
photos.
NACC number 212, 63 Crossbow.
So this one should be quick. Everything was removed as required, the beach, the fencing, the picnic table. There is now just some sod in that area, which is being well watered and fertilized by geese. And as we said at the last time, the shed had been removed, so this is just approval of the shed he had requested that when this all began. So we've been out there, we've measured it out, he has it all staked out and mapped. So I just recommend approval. Small project L, only because it's slightly larger than the 100 square feet that is a B.
And what do you want for conditions?
Just post-construction,
Post only?
post only, because like I said,
Well,
it's
everything else
all,
is done.
it's pretty much all set to go.
All right, so I'll move that we consider this a project under the letter L, shed 112 square feet.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous.
I move that we approve the project as proposed with a post-construction inspection per the administrator.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. He's not here anyways.
IDAs, Mr. Chairman.
Next one is RDA 730 Mass Ave, request to continue to August 8th.
So moved.
And actually, no, he just, late today, asked if he's going to be away the 8th, could it be the 22nd?
It can be.
We could do that.
Okay.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. Next one is 242-1728, 500 Boxford Street.
So as discussed, we received an alternative, I believe on the 18th, it looks like. The alternative that was presented, and I've given you a colored-up copy of what is not the final, but the one I gave you the colored-up copy of was one I made comments on, which the plan that is in front of you tonight now reflects those comments. After Lou and I met this morning, we submitted a couple last comments. As requested, the driveway is now out of the 50-foot no-build zone. The septic systems are all now out of the 75-foot no-build zone to the ephemeral pool. There is a wall that largely conforms to the 50 where possible. On the side where ephemeral pool A was not found to contain species, vernal pool species, the wall is somewhat closer. The plantings, the mitigation plantings are out there in areas that are previously developed. I think it still stands to, that as was required in, I think, which was the ORAD, that the dump area would need to be cleaned up, and we could condition that, and that carry over to this order of conditions from the ORAD.
I've lost track. Where's the dump area?
In ephemeral pool B.
It's in ephemeral.
In ephemeral pool B. So we might need to put some conditions on a time of year for that as well. But I haven't drafted it based on this being a plan that still requires waivers, but with that, I'll turn it over to the applicants to summarize further.
I'm just going to distribute the latest alternative plan that we emailed to Jennifer this afternoon.
Jennifer, that's the one that's on the screen?
It's also, we made you copies from this, but if you have full-size.
In front of the colored one?
Yep.
So the first of two that's not marked up is this alternative?
Is the alternative. I marked up the other one just to kind of show you where the different lines were in the new wall.
Commissioners have a updated waiver request.
No, they don't have the waiver request.
That's fine.
Well, we do have a waiver request. I have
Oh, all 3 pages of it?
I have a waiver
Oh, no.
request in front of me.
There were 3 pages of it, which, so yeah,
Alright.
that's okay.
I'll give you this is the plan and also the waiver request.
Okay.
Thanks. I started to move them and I was like, this is just too much.
Good evening, my name is Dennis Breach, I'm an engineer with Andover Consultants with an office at 1 East Replace Smith Thune.
here tonight on behalf of the applicant, Michael Donovan. The most recent alternative plan that we sent to Jennifer and the commission, as she described, we pulled the driveways to the maximum extent outside of the 50-foot no disturb, 50-foot no build zone. We've also shifted the septic system approximately 20 degrees to get it outside of the 75-foot setback. You can see that on Lot 1. The updated waivers, so lots 1 and 2 are both requesting a certain amount of disturbance within the 50-foot no disturbance zone with the ephemeral pools. Lot 1, and some of that work is to allow us to build the stone wall and the buffer zone plantings as a buffer from the pools to the developed portion of the site. That portion of the 50-foot disturbance is here and also over here on the lots 1 and 2. We're also requesting a waiver for the 75-foot no build for a portion of the houses both on Lot 2 and Lot 1, and a small portion of the driveway on Lot 1. And the waiver for the 100-foot setback for the septic systems. We have been granted the Board of Health approvals. The small shift in the septic system on Lot 1 will require us to go back to the Board of Health, but we have spoke to the Board of Health agent, and he's comfortable with the revisions we've made with some, with an additional test pit done at the time of construction of the septic system. So we'll be submitting revised plans to the Board of Health. I think those are the waivers. We've also requested a waiver from the 50-foot of the resource areas. So I think that in this case, the ephemeral pool setbacks will trump that, but we have requested that just so we make sure we have all our bases covered.
Joe?
I think we're there. It took us a long time to get into looking at all the various alternatives, but every time we thought they could wiggle a little further, they went back and done that, but I'm not seeing any other place to wiggle anything. I think if we're inclined to approve the lots, this is the best we're gonna get. So I think they've absolutely satisfied the requirement to provide a robust, at least, alternatives analysis. And I don't have any questions at this point.
My question is actually, if Jennifer, Jen, I always put it on you in the 11th hour. You're our scientist. Are you in agreement with all the delineations, lines, and setbacks as proposed on the plan?
Sort of a heavy question.
Scientifically speaking.
I think, given that the presentation that their biologist made last week talking about the likelihood that the disturbed and unvegetated areas of the lot, as well as the road area being used for any kind of habitat for vernal pool species, that the envelope they're using is definitely not in any of the areas that he described as being useful. That they're definitely utilizing parts of the lot that are already disturbed for the single-family house that is there. I had said in a prior meeting that if you were going to grant waivers, that in the past, the only waivers when you've granted a waiver, that you've pretty much held to them having to keep the no-build zone, I'm sorry, the 50-foot no-disturb zone as like a hard and fast, you're not going to develop here kind of area. They've put this wall in with one minor exception where they've given back on the other side where we didn't have the vernal pool species. They've kept to that 50-foot and in some places more. They've put in plantings in some of the areas that are unvegetated currently. So I think from a species perspective, they've done all they can to make sure those pools are protected, that these yards and lawns and things won't incur into those areas. And, you know, like you said, if we asked for them to try to do this or that to make this project comply, they've done it. So I think it's the best project that, if you are inclined to grant the waivers, that can be had. And I don't think we're giving up anything because we are classifying the areas as ephemeral pools. They will receive the same protection that they're basically currently receiving, except that they'll be walled off from this development, pretty much.
Thank you.
Yeah, you've done what we asked. We gave you some more area in the back of dwelling 2 because of the, you pushed the wall back toward the vegetation. You moved the deck. You got that driveway out of on lot 1. I think you've done what we've asked. Took a little coaxing, but overall, I don't have any issues with this project.
All set.
I'm all set. Okay, now we have abutters here. Would you like to address this, or are you all set?
Just remember to give us your name. Thank you.
Good evening, Chris Coloris, 525 Boxford Street.
Thank you, Chris.
As you know, I've been to most of these meetings. I'm sure you're all aware of my opposition to it. I guess my first question is, I saw new plans were handed out. I printed this at about 2 o'clock this afternoon, so is this an accurate plan, and the plan
Well,
that
you
was
can
just
have,
handed
you can
out,
have
does that
this
have
one
any impact
here.
on-
The only changes they've made are they brought the wall in closer to the houses on a few points and added some stairs to the deck and brought the wall to the road where it hadn't previously. So if you want this plan, which might have a few minor tweaks, you can have it.
This is what's currently on the website.
This is, I uploaded this, I was out of the office for a lot of the day, so I want to say I uploaded this maybe closer to 4 o'clock, 3:30, 4 o'clock.
That's fine, that's fine. I guess my question is about the wall. Is there any more detail about the wall itself? Obviously, when I looked at this plan, that's the one major feature that pops out at you that's different from before. Is this are these boulders? Is this a masonry wall? How? Because I live right across the street from it. I would like to know, how high is it? What am I looking at?
We generally require a 2x2 dry-laid fieldstone wall. Some people like to make that look like a farmer's wall. Some people like to make it look nicer, having it sort of be very level and very, the stone stacked to be kind of perfect. They can do that if they choose, but it doesn't need to be that sort of engineered.
All right, so you're not requiring it.
But it's safe to say that we wouldn't allow like a block wall or a brick wall.
No.
That it's more of a natural looking wall.
But and this is coming, we're showing, so if it's boulders, right out to the very edge of Boxford Street.
No, it comes to the edge of the property line. They can't put
Okay.
it in the right-of-way.
So, okay, so the dotted line is the edge of Boxford Street, and,
No, yeah, that's the actual edge of
Okay,
payment. And you
okay.
can see the dark line is the property line, and then parts of the driveway incur into the right-of-way as they would in order to connect to the roadway, but the
Right.
wall does not go that far.
I had asked this question before, so, and forgive me, I wasn't at the last meeting, so I'm not sure what the answer was. On previous maps, there's an Essex County marker directly across the street, which has generally been accepted as the main focal point for measuring, and it was on previous maps. It hasn't been on the last couple. Makes it a little difficult for the abutters to determine where everything is in relationship. Is that not a requirement, or
No.
to show an Essex County marker?
Not a requirement.
It's,
It's not a requirement? Okay. Okay, I have nothing else. Thank you.
Elsie Pulio, 465 Boxwood Street. I have a property that's 4.5 acres that is across from some of this Donovan property. And I have a tendency to watch the public hearings for ZBA, planning, conservation, Board of Health. And it seems that for some of the properties on Boxford Street, there have been variances granted, waivers granted. And when my property was given to me, the zoning was 1 acre in the early 80s. And then in the late 80s, it was changed to 2 acre, plus the ZBA. And it seems that the 75% contiguous buildable area is the big thing that interferes with development on a 2 acre lot. So I didn't think too much of it when the zoning was changed in the late 80s. But now that I look at it with what is happening on Boxford Street, my property is probably available now for another house, because all I'd have to do is get a variance for the 75% contiguous buildable and maybe a waiver or two, common driveway, and there's another house. And there are a number of properties on Boxford Street that are 2 acre, 4 acre, 6 acre because of the change in the zoning in the late 80s. So I'm 81, so I probably won't see what happens to my land, but I'm sure someday there's going to be another house on my land. So just to leave it at that, I have a request from one of the abutters that has a health problem. And I spoke with the Board of Health, and there is no Mass state law that states that the abutters have to be informed when a dwelling is destroyed. But this abutter is concerned about airborne, whatever. So I said that I would do everything in my power to find out if the owner would let me know when the house is going to be destroyed so that I could inform the neighbor, because it is a real concern about airborne stuff. Okay, so I don't know if you can do anything. I might have to go back to the Board of Health or a selectman. Is that what you're saying?
A demolition permit is issued by the building inspector, so you
Right.
would need to speak to building.
But Elsie's correct, there's no obligation, so we're just asking the owner,
this is
Oh.
will the owner notify
This
them?
is a courtesy thing that's coming up, right?
Yeah,
So-
it is a courtesy thing, and the abutter doesn't want, her name to be known, so I said I would do it.
So I think that they'd probably give you that courtesy
Yeah.
phone call. I'm sure
So,
they will.
so that they, because the abutter said that they would actually leave the area the day that the house is demolished.
So that's fair enough, right, guys? Give the butters a little advance notice so they can
Yeah,
go
so
on
I
vacation
can
or something.
give you my phone number and whatever. And you said that the dump is going to be handled around the same time as the destruction of the house?
I mean, the construction sequence is something that's required by the order of conditions. I would assume it would be something they would do before constructing new houses and walls, just from an access issue.
Well,
So-
we didn't say that so much, I mean, that's a sequence issue, but our concern more is the utility of the vernal pool. If we're cleaning it out, we don't want, obviously,
Timing,
anywhere
right.
near the time it's being used, either end of it.
Right,
So-
so we would probably want that done in the dry, ideally, during a summer period or under frozen
Dead of
conditions
winter
or,
would be perfect, yeah.
yeah.
Okay, we won't be notified of that either. I mean, that's.
Well,
not
you'd be notified in the sense that the DEP sign's gonna go up, erosion controls are gonna go out, and at that point, if you wanted to give us a call and say, what's the timing on the cleanup, we could certainly let you know.
Now, the building department, if I asked them to notify me, they probably would too, aren't there 7 committees that have to?
We
check
all
off?
sign off on the building permits, like, so conservation would, that they've had their pre-construction or whatever, health would, everybody would sign off on it, so he would be the only one who knew when everybody had done that.
Okay, very good.
On the sequence of demoing the house as compared to cleaning up of the dump area, other than the courtesy that's just been extended, we're only going to drive the timing of the vernal pool cleanup, the dump cleanup. We're not going to dictate of when the house is going to be destroyed, that they need to be done at the same time. I don't see us going there.
No.
But if you can just give the abutter that notice that they request, that would be very much appreciated.
Yeah, I would just also note just that terms of timeline, it presumably will be some time because we're still going to have to go back to other boards for other approvals and there's a whole process. But whenever it is, we will absolutely provide notice.
Thank you, guys.
Good.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
A quick question. It just had to do with the number of waivers. Obviously, it's been a lengthy process. When the process began, I believe the number of, it was 5 that was tossed about as the number of waivers. There's been a lot of tweaks to plans over the meetings. Could we just recap, where are we now? By this current plan, have those original waivers been satisfied? Are there some that can never be satisfied?
So I have 3 waiver requests in front of me right here.
Okay.
That will pass out to all of us. And
So I don't think, one of the waiver requests that they have would be that for the walls, you don't need a waiver request to construct the walls, because the commission allows those at the no disturbance zone,
Well,
so.
actually, we're the ones that requested the wall.
Right. So I think the waiver requests remain the septic systems on both lots, construction in the no-build zone to an ephemeral pool.
In the septic system.
Yep, the septic systems are their own waiver because they're not allowed within 100 feet of an ephemeral pool, so that's the first waiver on both lots. The no-build zone on both lots to the ephemeral pool habitat. I guess they've requested some additional waivers, given that the commission said that they were less concerned with enforcing the 50-foot and the 75-foot on ephemeral pool A, given that it contained no vernal pool species.
Right.
But I think what the commission's saying is they still want to, this is still qualifies by its size and depth of water and those things as an ephemeral pool. So technically, they've requested waivers under both sets of
Okay.
the 25-50 and the 50-75. I think the commission's just going to grant them of the 50-75, given that they're still calling it an ephemeral pool.
So there's waivers required for both lots?
Correct.
All right.
Just because they're not saying it's not an ephemeral pool, they're just saying that given the fact that it doesn't contain certified vernal pool species, that they don't feel maintaining those buffer zones is as critical on this particular property as it is on the other, where they have maintained that 50-foot no disturb zone. And
Sounds very technical. My take on that, what it comes down to is, yeah, both of these holes have the topography and the geology and the capability of holding water, and they could theoretically invite animals to work. One, in fact, through the science that was played out and analyzed, proved that the bigger one, vernal pool B, was being used, and vernal pool A wasn't. So though it wasn't being used, doesn't mean it may not ever be used in the future. So we're still providing the highest level of protection for that, that we can.
Okay. Thank you.
Even though the scientist who was out there proved that it wasn't being used this past season.
Thank you.
Like I said, I think altering the site as a whole, I think you're gonna see some of the critters migrate at some point.
You know, for the folks who may be pathetic enough to be watching this for the past 6 months we've been talking about this, I don't want anybody to walk away thinking that we've given up anything in particular. This is probably one of the best applications with regards to give and take that this commission has seen, where we've really played out the regulation versus the existing condition versus property rights versus habitat, and really looked at it from all of those perspectives. And in the end, we gave up very little, given the use of the land that's already there. We're getting 2 new properties, the applicant's getting 2 new properties, and we're still getting the level of protection we want. I mean, for this to ever be construed that we gave waivers away willy-nilly is just not fair. We really did the work on this one.
To quote you in the original meeting,
I think it's more
I
based
said,
on
no
the
way, DOA
vegetation.
was the original quote. And as presented, it was. But, you know, that's exactly how these things are supposed to play out, and the alternatives analysis requirement works. It's what drove the success of this.
and I'm assuming it's gonna succeed. I don't mean physically, I know it will, but I think we're gonna likely lean towards voting for it.
All questions you want?
No, actually, so the only question I have before you get on board here is, there's 3 requests here. So is it, Jen, is it your suggestion that the first page that calls for a waiver for the retaining wall for septic system, you're saying we don't have to vote on that? You don't think we should?
Well, I'm noting, we can vote on that because it does incur 2 feet
Yeah.
beyond the 50,
So
but
let
it's
us-
basically part of their no disturbance wall. They've connected it on both ends to that no disturbance wall, which wouldn't generally require a waiver, but
You know,
I can see where
In this
that's
case, I'd be more comfortable if we.
just granting it,
if we
yep.
go through
So
all
it would
three
be,
as
it would be the
requested.
3 waivers, yes.
Let's, since they bothered to put them up, let's go down and,
Deb? No questions. Okay,
so, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move on these waivers, and I want to know if I have to take them one at a time, each page at a time. Is that the best way to do it, Counselor? Okay.
Yes.
So, with regard to the first waiver request, page 1, that request is a waiver request from section 2, definitions 50-foot no build for lot 1, landscape boulder wall, and for lot 2, construction of a landscape boulder wall. I move that we grant that waiver as requested.
Second.
all those in favor say aye.
I,
Aye.
I have a question. This side,
Discussion.
it says a boulder wall?
On lot
What I
1,
was saying is,
landscape boulder wall, 205 feet plus or minus a linear feet within the no-build zone. They're saying a boulder wall. We call it a farmer's wall.
so we allow the farmer's wall within the no-build zone. Those
Yeah.
were, the only one in there that I think they really need to apply for is that septic system retaining wall that extends 2 feet into the no-build zone.
And that's the one that's described
Right,
as
so I
a
don't, the
retaining
landscape
wall.
boulder walls, we allow right up to the 25 on other lots,
Well,
so that isn't the 50-foot no-build zone, it's
Right.
only for the septic system.
And that is a boulder wall.
Right, that is, no, that is a retaining wall.
So that request is contained on what I'm referring to as page 1 of the 3 pages
Correct.
of waivers, and that's the one I offered my motion on page 1.
Well, you understand the language on that, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Motion?
So my motion was to approve it.
Do we have a second?
Motion and second, it was on discussion.
it was already
We
done.
call the vote.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I,
Opposed? That's unanimous.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'm taking them in order. Page 2, waiver request 2, request from section 3.1, ephemeral pools and ephemeral pool habitat, 50-foot no disturbance, 75-foot no build, and 100-foot septic setback for Lot 1 to allow 3,815 plus or minus square feet of disturbance within the 50-foot no disturbance zone. I move to approve that waiver.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? And that's unanimous.
And page 3, Mr. Chairman, for lot number 2, to allow 4,235 plus or minus square feet of disturbance within the 50-foot no disturbance zone of an ephemeral pool. I move to grant that waiver.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
I,
Opposed? And that's unanimous.
And accordingly, I move that we close and issue a decision within 21 days.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
I.
Opposed? And that's unanimous. Thank you.
So do you want to give me the stamps?
Yeah, just a question specifically, so there's also a request for the 75-foot no build zone.
He summarized that in the beginning, but he didn't read through the whole thing, for which I thank him for not reading the whole thing, because
I figured since you got it in writing, that's what you're relying upon, and it's your request, so you know what we voted on.
I was going to tell them just to vote on the waivers as requested, but since you started reading, I wasn't going to stop you.
He was on a roll.
I would have taken direction had it been offered.
Okay. Thank you. I would just note the one thing, that the buffer plantings aren't specified anywhere, correct? So we're still going to go with you submitting a planting plan prior to?
Right.
Okay. Just making sure I'm correct on that. Thank you.
We've already voted to close this decision with 21 days?
Yeah, we closed it.
Yes.
Is that?
Thank you all
very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
What's today? I was dating those plans. Whew, on to the next one.
Next one is a 242-1735, 1429 Osgood Street.
Bridget, I just got the list of materials from planning of what's gonna be stored, so they don't have that. And then there was some kind of memo about fire truck access, which I don't think they're also either privy to, if you just wanna.
We actually haven't received the comments back yet, but I can run through all that stuff.
Okay, great, thanks.
So just a reminder, Bridget Souza with Allen Mays Associates, 1429 Osgood Street, representing Oliver Enterprises. On July 5th, we submitted a revised plan set, finalized plan set based off of our septic findings. So we finalized the location of that and the location of parking and rain garden areas and whatnot. We answered all of Horsley Witten's review comments. Planning board was satisfied with our responses to them. We have a couple minor for the civil side of their review with TEC, just providing some details, a lighting plan. So we will be working on those to get our approval with the planning board. The fire department was reviewing the project on Monday, I believe. They had a couple minor questions, such as storage list of what would be stored on site, both inside and outside. So their contractor's yard, so it would be stone products, gravel, brick pavers, mulch and loam. I know the fire department did have concerns about how much loam would be stored on site for the aspect of it being a fire hazard if there's too much. The contractor, Oliver Enterprises wants to make it clear that max would be 2 storage bins. They would be stored on the north side of the property, so it would be in these bins up here, away from the wetlands. And that's not even gonna, like max would be 150 cubic yards. The fire department's comment was for 300, so it's not gonna be anywhere near that. They did have other questions regarding internal, checking the fire system. But other than that, we submitted to them a revised turning plan just to make sure that we were matching their fire truck specs. The truck moves around the building, same, no problem. There are a couple other comments that we haven't received the comments from planning board and fire department yet, so we will address those as necessary, but from what I understand, it's not anything that we cannot address.
Joe? So with all of the back and forth of those other disciplines and other departments, nothing has changed with regards to grading of the lot?
No.
Collection of drainage and treatment in rain gardens for what was previously proposed? Everything that was here the last time is the same as it was then?
Correct. And per you guys' request, remove the last bit in here out of the buffer zone. There was one more bit moved because of the location of the septic system that we removed, but other than that, everything's largely the same.
Okay, well said.
I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
I thought I saw in here that it listed the icing, salt.
No, so fertilizer inside would 1 pallet. That's the only thing that they would be storing, and no de-icing chemicals or anything like that stored on site.
It's gonna be bagged de-icer, not loose.
Unless the owner said something to the town that I wasn't aware of.
So on the list.
So on the storage list, we do, it was an email that was sent to the fire chief directly, as he had emailed me for that list. I had copied the owner on it, and like I said, it was those materials for outside. Inside would be roughly the same, some stone products, pavers, and the chance of fertilizer, but those would be contained and also located inside, not outside of the building.
Just to correct you, not that matters, it's not the loan that the fire department was concerned about, it's the bark mulch.
Yeah, the mulch.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
That's all right. I don't have any more questions.
No question.
Motion?
So I do think you're still working with the planning board?
Yeah, there's just minor comments that we have to address for their TEC civil side review. We have to provide like a signage detail and a dumpster pad detail. We also need to provide a photometrics plan for lighting.
When do you meet with them?
We met with them last night, so their next meeting isn't until August 21st, I believe. So we have almost a month to respond to everything and get them all the materials. So we will be doing that by the end of next
So the
week.
choice becomes if we were to close, because we have enough information, yet something may come out of the next planning board meeting, you have to come back and modify, or we can stay open until that meeting and close right after that.
Historically, we don't close an application until it's been cleared by all the
It still could
boards.
result in the same outcome, right? So I would draft an order of conditions, so on the 22nd, when we meet, we would close an issue. So they
Okay.
would close on the 21st, we would close an issue on the 22nd.
Okay.
Their appeal timeline is longer than ours as well, so you'd pretty much be done with us in the same. It just, that way, whatever the
it's a
final plan
technicality, yeah, I
set
understand.
ends up being, you can just make sure we have it, and then.
So
since
we
they're-
move to continue, we're not looking for any more information unless something comes out of the planning board.
Right. I did put in your recommendations that Horsley Witten did have a few things that they thought we should include in our order of conditions, but nothing was an illicit discharge statement.
yeah,
this-
we
We have
can
the
provide
draft
those,
SWIP, but
yes.
the final SWIP, and then just for the material storage that we might want to restrict certain things being in the
Okay.
buffer zone. I did ask that they update the erosion control detail to be the 12-inch straw wattle back by the siltation fence, and so that's now on the plan already, so.
And actually bringing that to light, one of Horsley and Witten's recommendations was that if signed illicit I'm trying to get the right words, signed illicit discharge statement be provided prior to construction. Do we know what they mean by that? I think I do, but I'm not sure.
That nothing inside the building is currently connected to the stormwater system, and that generally, we require that prior to issuance of a certificate of compliance, just because by that point, they should have dug up anything that.
From that perspective, I can see that from any cross-connection from what was a former septic system getting out.
Right.
But the second piece is, if we were specifically to condition no anti-icing, no manure, no fertilizers outside, if we specifically condition that itself is a statement for illicit discharge as far as surface runoff is
Yeah,
concerned.
the illicit discharge statements are the IDDE program.
Yeah.
Basically, that we get those from any of these existing structures that could have had in the past.
Okay.
And usually, they want to be going through the whole building and knowing what their system is before they certify that, so I think it might be premature prior to construction.
And this was septic and is still going to be septic. right?
Correct, yep.
But there's got to be floor drains in there, there could
Just
be
make
anything.
sure they don't connect to storm drains.
Right, that's what the statement would
Yeah.
be.
Do they still allow floor drains?
Yes, but they can't discharge to the sewer system.
That you can have them, they just can't work.
Well, it depends what you're discharging. I mean, if
They
it's water
discharge
from the
to drain
shower.
system. They must discharge to the sewer system. They
Yes.
can't to the drain.
Yeah.
Correct.
Right.
Anything inside, whether it's a
Anything inside
garage or
cannot
building.
discharge to the drain.
To the sewer system, not the storm drainage system.
Yeah, sewer system, because I had a,
Must connect to the sewer.
right,
Not the storm drainage,
Yeah.
right.
not
Oh,
the
you said it
storm
the other way
drains.
around.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That's-
because I had to put.
Connect
those
up to the
police
stormwater system, it's
traps.
fine.
Yeah, no, I know.
Say that again?
I'm kidding, we were joking.
Trying
I did see you.
trying to see if you're listening to it.
Was listening, but for change, I heard it.
I'm also.
I
But
just said,
for the Horsley Witten open items, the SWIP, I provided the draft. We finalized those when we applied for our NIPD permits, which we will have to do for this site as the pavement areas over Anchor. And we've been in contact with MassDOT. That's the only other Horsley Witten comment. So I'm waiting for them to review. I sent them site plans and runoff calc, so as soon as I hear back, we'll go from there. But we would have to apply for an access permit regardless, as we're on 125.
Just, things are coming back to memory. In the back part of that, there was an old foundation of concrete. Has that been removed?
Yeah, that's being removed.
Has it been tested?
I believe we went back and forth with the AULs that was submitted. I don't know if that's,
Well, they had
They
all their
haven't
site
removed anything yet.
remediation, there was no issues with
Right.
that, and I mean.
Do we have a
under-
21E on file?
Yes.
Okay. Because I know there was contamination there before. And now that we're excavating part of the building, I don't know if they ever checked that.
All right, so your question is, again, depending what the substance was and where it was, you wouldn't necessarily need to remediate underneath the building if the building itself was part of the containment, but now that the part of the building's coming down, is there additional work now required because of that? I don't know the answer to that. That's what you're asking.
Okay.
That would have been called out in the 21E.
Not necessarily,
No,
not necessarily.
because,
If it was under the building and was deemed encapsulated and contained,
they wouldn't look for
they
it.
wouldn't look for it. And now that that building's gone,
They had
we're
monitoring wells.
speculating.
They closed out the, whatever they were monitoring for, and there was no trace of anything in the monitoring wells or detectable levels, or, we have all the reporting, I can read
there's
through it.
existing monitoring wells all over the site.
And they're being decommissioned as part of this, but the hazardous waste people had already signed off on, this was, I forget, it was a long time ago, but they provided us all the documentation that showed that whatever they were remediating for was cleaned up and done.
Okay, I'm just,
I mean, I'm guessing, I mean, they're gonna be working there, 8 hours a day plus. I doubt it, if they're finding anything. You would just assume it was in the foundation, under the
Like
foundation?
underneath
Well,
the,
they might have went
inside,
underneath.
underneath the foundation wall.
I don't even know what the contaminations were. I know that it was dirty. The question is like I just,
So let me flip this around, because
Okay.
it shows what you're talking about. So prior, this area here, that's the old limits of the building.
right,
So at some point, that was taken down, and they put up this, I don't know if this wall was there, the external wall was there prior, but or if it was like a separate piece of the building, but that wall was closed off, so that concrete limit, it's not a concrete pad, that's actually the old foundation.
so was the testing done before or after the,
Before the building was torn down.
before the building?
Yeah, the
was
building
torn
was
down?
only torn down. We were at 1600 Osgood when that back portion was taken down.
First of all, 21E out trumps us to begin with.
Right.
Us being called, Wetlands Protection Act. What we would want to get, and 21E necessarily wouldn't concern themselves with, is protection of migration of any soils or any erosion or any disturbance, as we would like any other foundation excavation. How they handle the hazardous material is what they're concerned with. So, I don't know, and I don't even want to speculate, but there is a chance that they may still have something in that area that was never previously yard area. And we could probably just simply ask that an affidavit or some report be submitted to us that states exactly that, and that this permit doesn't cover for any activity. That would be specifically a separate activity they have to come back and get permits for.
But we have a month to investigate that. I sent you all of the documentation, and I can resend it if you want, that they sent us on what was done on this site and how it was cleaned up and what the final certification was. So if you want to see that again, we can.
Well, it's not gonna say what we're asking.
I don't know what
But if
it's
you have
not gonna say.
monitoring wells all over the site, you would assume you would have found traces of that in some of those wells, if there was further material.
Don't know what the material is.
That's
It-
what I
the-
said.
the
I don't know
plant-
what
If
it
it's
is.
a liquid material
It's
that can
identifi-
migrate with a water column,
Yeah.
then you're right. But if it's a solid or a smeared substance that's not gonna be readily migrated, that's capable of migrating the soil or water column, yet it would still need to come out now that the building is down. I mean, that's something we'd want to know about. I'm not speculating that it's there. I think Louis raises a question that I think we can get an answer to, but I don't want to suggest that there's pollution under it, just that
Well,
given the history,
I'm not
it's
saying
worth
this
getting
is
the
a-
answer.
I'm not saying this is a Superfund site, but we're gonna go through all this, what we're going through now, you know, approving this project, and they're considering capping this, and we don't know what's underneath. Because I would say you're gonna pave it at some point.
Yeah, so what's the existing concrete will be taken out, the old foundation wall's taken out, and it would be paved over.
They're still in there,
The concrete and foundation walls are still in there.
right? So, I mean, they could come in and just do some test borings, and that would cover it, Joe, wouldn't it?
I don't know. I mean, you don't know what's gonna take, you know, whatever
I'm not a big fan.
level of, whatever standard level of practice is sufficient to determine that there's no problem is what they should do under 21E regs.
Right.
Got nothing to do with conservation until such times they have to dig it out and we have to provide, they have to convince us that they're providing protection for that. It's the only time that we come into play.
Is the existing foundation, I don't have a plan with me, is any of that in the buffer zone?
Yeah.
This is the 200 riverfront, and then, so this is the foundation wall itself. This was an old concrete pad, and that's in the 100-foot wetland buffer.
So they were
Old
accused,
concrete pad.
it was a wastewater discharge. From the
But
court.
you can sort of see the wall. When you go out to the site, a portion of that wall is still, so it's uneven, like a truck couldn't drive back there. I mean, they are able to maneuver some equipment around, but like a fire truck wouldn't be able to get around the building.
We're kind of navigating through uncharted waters here. I don't think we should be doing this from the table. Jen, if you could send again what you've previously sent, so what, you know, Louis and I or any of us could look at it, and if we think there's reason to ask additional questions, we'll get them back to you to have the applicant prepared to answer them if they need to at the next meeting. Because we're not even sure there is a problem, so why get into the detail of where the building is or wasn't, you know, what's going to become of it and what might be under it? We're just guessing.
Okay, I'm sending it all to you right now. I found it all. It's 1, 2, 3, 4 documents, so you'll have it.
Right, so we're not gonna vote on this till the 22nd?
Yeah.
Okay. So motion to continue to August 22nd.
So moved.
Second, oh, go ahead.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. Thank you. Sorry to
No, that's fine.
raise a question, I'm not a big fan of contaminated soil.
Don't worry.
Me being a dirt merchant, I know it cost me a lot of money. Next one is 242. Did you get a DP number, Phil, yet?
Mr.
I
Chairman.
didn't see one today, no.
Mr. Chairman, before you open it, I have a conflict. I cannot sit on this.
Okay.
So I'm gonna recuse myself and sit in the back of the room.
You can do that.
Thank you.
Phil, do you have your DP number yet? Did it come in yet?
We did not get
You
it.
did not get it, okay. And we have a butters here? Okay.
So this is a proposal for a 7-lot subdivision, of which, under this filing, only the roadway, utilities, and stormwater management are being proposed. I've listed out quite a few concerns I have about the project, but before we get into those, I think we'll start by you presenting the proposal.
Okay, thank you. Philip Christensen for the applicant, Robert Messina. This is for improvement of a section of Ray Street that's between North Cross Road and really Abbott Street, I guess. It's an unimproved section, the last section of Ray Street to be developed. So it's about a 1,200-foot-long road. We're proposing to install a sewer and water. Now, also with this, there's additional property that's owned. The property is owned by Joe Averka, and there's additional land in the back. Sheet 3, I think, there, just so everybody can see that.
Existing conditions?
Go back another one there. There you go. You'll see there's parcels A and parcels B. They're to be donated to the town of North Andover. That's land, it's approximately 17 acres. That's land that's they're both isolated parcels, or at least portions of isolated parcels, that will not be included in this subdivision. So the land that will be subdivided or contained in these improved lots will be approximately 10 acres in size. Additionally, and some of you may remember, maybe Joe, you were around at the time, North Cross and South Cross were originally approved, and there was a sewer put in, and it was never connected. There was a problem, I believe, with conservation, and the developer went bankrupt. They didn't get the proper easements, and the sewer never got connected. So at North Cross and South Cross, people are on septic systems. So what Tim Willett asked for this project is that
There is a dry system in the street installed.
there's a dry system in the street. It's not connected. There's water in the pipes. It's technically a dry sewer, but it's not very dry. But anyway, he asked that we size the pump station for this project, which is what we intend to do, put in a pump station and not use septic systems, but that we size it to accommodate the additional 15 homes that are out there that should be connected to that dry sewer. And it's our understanding that the town of North Andover will make some modifications and improvements to that sewer to connect it to the pump station, so that the homeowners will have the ability, when the system's finally
You're
go.
providing capacity.
We're providing that capacity.
You're providing the work on that piece of it.
On that part of it, that's correct. And then also, we're putting in a water line, which will connect the water line that's on North Cross all the way through to Ray Street and Abbott Street on the other side. So there are benefits for the town. We did have a hearing last night with Planning Board to present the project. Quite a few abutters were there. And one of the main concerns is traffic flow. So they're concerned about this being a cut-through, and it may create safety problems for kids, sidewalks, whatnot. So they're issues we're going to be looking at. And just further, so you understand, we only got comments in at the end of last week from TEC, and is it SSV you use now? I think that's...
Well, they're one of our consultants.
Yeah, I think that's the other one we got from. And we got a 3-page comment letter from an abutter, but we have not got any comments yet from DPW, sewer, water, fire, police. So we want to get all those comments together before we respond to them, because there'll be conflicts within those comments, and we got to resolve that. So just with those comments, I expect some changes in the plan. There's some discussion by the planning board maybe to put a cul-de-sac here so it doesn't become a cut-through. But in any case, this is the plan we've presented, and it will change, and I just want to present it tonight to you and know that as we move ahead, there'll be some changes to it. So what we've done is to try as much as possible to develop a low-impact development project. And when you look at this site, water flows from the north up here, right across Ray Street, and it's a fairly substantial drainage area, and it flows down into the wetland that's behind it and the Mosquito Brook. To avoid catch basins and manholes and whatnot, what we've done is to propose a super elevated road that's higher on the north side than the south side. So the water will flow across the road, and then we have a curb on the south side of the road here with breaks in that curb along the way. And at those breaks, they'll drain down into infiltration basins, and you'll see we have 6 infiltration basins, and finally on Lot 7, there's a rain garden, okay? So that all of the stormwater will be able to infiltrate stormwater and also mitigate increase in peak flows by having those.
And everything you just described is handling water coming your way from other
Yes.
locations, nothing to do with your development.
Well, with our development as well. I mean,
street.
From the street, right. And from, the calculations include the houses and the yards and whatnot, but, so we've submitted the drainage calcs and show that there's no increase in peak flows for the 2, 10, 25, and 100-year storms. But we need all of those facilities to do that. And also, as you know, with stormwater management, you have to infiltrate. So that's one of the reasons those basins are infiltration basins as well.
And the soils conducive to that out there?
Yes, they are. Yep.
Although I would note, the SVB didn't pick it up, but you don't have 2-foot separation to groundwater on some of them.
I think we do. We don't on the rain garden, but not the rain garden at the end, but on all the other ones we do.
Okay.
I'll check that. I mean,
Just
it's,
for some of mine, from what I saw, the groundwater varies pretty dramatically, at least in some of the test pits. I didn't have a chance to look at every single one versus every single rain garden, but like, there were some that were, the water table was much higher.
yes,
So,
it does vary, right.
so I think he said, he went back and looked and said he would comment later, but that there were maybe a few that didn't
Yeah,
meet that.
We were pretty careful. We went out there and did soil testing on all those, in every one of those spots, and set the base of the infiltration areas to be 2 feet above groundwater. But we'll check that,
At the
obviously.
end of the game, we all have the same interest in
Right.
mind here. And it's premature to get into those kind of details, especially if there might be a cul-de-sac introduced in an area where, you know,
Yeah.
it's going to be different.
I think my biggest concern with the project was the alternatives analysis is from a Rivers Protection Act standpoint. And given what we've seen already tonight with trying to tweak things I think that needs to be looked at a little bit harder.
Yes, and I'll explain a little of that. We have a rain garden down in this end, okay? And it's not an infiltration basin because of the elevation differences in separation from groundwater. But this roadway slopes in this direction and in this direction. So the low point is here. When you look at the plan, you'll see that the grades are such that to get the water from here down to here, you have to be down this low in order to put something in that's going to work. So it's a stormwater system in the riverfront area, which is allowed under the rules and regulations. It is within the 50-foot no construction zone that you have, but it is a rain garden and it's not a house. It's not, it's not a patio, it's a rain garden. So I think you're right, we need to give you a stronger explanation for that. But you can't treat the water that's coming down here without having the basin down there. An alternative would be to allow more water to get by, but, that defeats the purpose, really.
So this unimproved section of Ray Street, you're carving up lots,
Yes.
approximately as shown here, across the layout of Ray Street. Is that the back land of other people's lots that already
Yes.
have houses on them?
Yes.
Or do these create new lots frontage?
No, they all have houses. They're off Abbott Street.
There's a detention basin actually on the other
Yeah.
side of the road, a big one.
Right over here, there's a long detention basin.
So
I think that's for these.
So as far as
but
sizing,
These were all, I think, Form A lots done years ago.
Right, and I think it also takes conventional stormwater drainage from catch basins on South Cross. The basin on the back of those lots.
okay, I guess my line of question was leading towards that, are we looking at the maximum build-out capability contributing to runoff in that area? If you're looking at it from a master drainage planning perspective, it sounds to me like across the street is already fully developed and couldn't take any more
Yes,
development.
it's fully developed. I mean, I didn't look at it in detail, see if you could cut up some lots and reconfigure them. I don't know, but,
The Rivers Protection Act also requires 100 feet of undisturbed vegetation from mean high water. which Lot 7, again, proposes some of those requirements for them to relook at alternatives for that particular lot. The Rivers Protection Act also allows for that 100 feet of undisturbed vegetation to be accounted for in other locations if more appropriate, so that this is the area of the road crossing. I'm just saying they need to bolster the need for
Sure.
that in that particular location, because it certainly conflicts with a number
Yeah,
of,
Turtle's analysis proves it's a 7-lot subdivision or perhaps 6.
well, it may not deem it undevelopable. It may just require that they do something else for the drainage, or at least prove that they can't do something else for the drainage.
Gotcha.
Yeah, one of the things out there too, just so you're aware, there's a beaver problem. So there's a beaver dam down approximately over here, which is backing up the water quite a bit. It does affect, I think, the neighbor that lives right down here. He has problems with it. I know in the past it's been broken down, but
Yeah, that beaver dam has been maintained a lot over the years.
and we are looking at the possibility of putting in a beaver deceiver down there, but that would be a separate application here. But I think it's needed for the neighborhood in general, but.
It's gotten massive in the past couple months, which is the way the beavers desire it, but it hasn't been that way in the past.
It does have an effect downstream, too. I mean,
Yeah,
the Mosquito Brook is dry
Right.
down below, so that's not good for,
I think a deceiver is a great idea. I definitely think permitting something like that, if, for the long term, is gonna be a much better solution than
Does that play into? would
that thing coming
could
and
that-
going in the middle of the night.
Could that play into the discussion of this permit?
It could if they wanted to permit it as part of the permit, but they probably want to deal with the beaver issue before doing any kind of development, because it is when I went out there last, mean high water was still on the upside of the beaver dam was still where mean high water had been flagged as part of the ORAD.
Okay, so it hasn't changed that.
It didn't, again, out in the wetland, a different story, but right where the channel is closest to the project, the flags were still at the location where mean high water had been flagged.
Is that? I have two questions. One of them, Phil, you said about the breaking and the curbing to let the water flow on, above the street, on top of the street?
what we do is, water's gonna flow across the street here, and at all the points, we have drainage swales that run down to these infiltration basins. Okay? So there'll be a break in the curb at that point. The roadway grades in this direction. So the water's flowing here, and then the water on the road's flowing in this direction. So when it gets to the break in the curb, it flows through that. And that keeps you from having to have catch basins in the street
That's
drainage.
existing roadway drainage, that's not overland drainage coming.
It's the
through
overland drainage too,
Both.
right across the road and down, yeah.
What would that be like in wintertime?
Well, it's the same grade, there's a 3% cross slope on it. So in the wintertime, even when you have a normal cross section, you still have water draining down, so. And by the way, I think there's, and we use HydroCAD, and we all look at the numbers, and we believe the numbers, but when you go out here and look at this property in the back, and you really can't, on topography and whatnot, pick up all of the fine points, but in reality, there's a stone wall right here. You know, over the years, when you have those stone walls, the soil starts to build up on either side of the wall. So you wind up with a low spot all the way back from here. And, you know, theoretically, you could say everything drains this way, and we did that for the calculations. In reality, this is an A soil up here, and you're not getting much water from here through here. It's really coming down here, settling in this area and draining through. But you can't reflect that when you do the stormwater calculations. You have to make the assumptions that it's all getting there, you know. But, yeah, it's all very sandy soil on that side. On this side, it varies. Some places it's sand, some places it's a glacial till.
And if you did build a cul-de-sac, if you have to go that route, would it be on the northwest side, no? Yes?
I think it'd be up at this end.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there actually is almost one there now, isn't there?
There's a cul-de-sac there now,
Hey.
kind of, I don't know if you remember when Ralph Joyce developed that land. That was back in the 80s. Yeah, and, yeah. But there's a sort of a cul-de-sac in that end. And then one of the other things that people were asking for is a sidewalk. And one of the problems we have is that end of the road is very narrow. It was maybe 2 rods, 33 feet wide. And there's pavement there. And when you look at, well, where would we put the sidewalk? And when you're looking up the street, the left side of the street has some big trees right next to the road with only enough room, 4 or 5 feet. And the other side, the land goes steeply up into the people's yards. So getting a sidewalk is a problem. So those are the things that the board wants us to consider, the planning board, and will affect ultimately what this plan looks like and what it'll be before you guys. But those things have to be worked out.
Thank you. Deb? Doug?
Yeah, you brought up a question about the drainage in the wintertime. How are you gonna get the water? The water runs down the road this way. In the wintertime, the water's gonna run down the road that way. It's not gonna go off into those drainage swales because they're gonna be covered with snow.
Well, I think,
So you got a potential problem with snow that,
I think it's, there's a curb on that side. So the snow will be plowed right up to the curb.
exactly.
Right.
Any runoff or you get rain directly after that's gonna go down the road.
My experience is usually when you see those windrows of snow along any road like that, you'll see that all the melting's under the bottom of it. So when you do have melt, it comes down and runs underneath it. That's what I see.
And all that salt that we prohibit going into wetlands is exactly what's causing that undercut.
Right.
Could be, but I think it's also, part of it, Joe, is the warmth of the ground
I
under
said
that.
earlier, it's premature to get involved deeply in the conversation of drainage until we see more, but I have real reservations about this LID approach as to what I'm hearing. I'm gonna hold it all off till I have far more information, because right now I just can't shoot from the hip, but, things like country drainage works great when you've got places for it to go and sit and really work, but, trying to get it from one side of the road to the other and not putting it in a pipe in any way is not always a good idea, never a good idea. And I really have reservations.
Well, we'll
It's way
sure.
early to be saying that with, with any definition.
Right, we'll hear from DPW about it, I'm sure.
That's why I'm asking. I'm of the same opinion.
We do have other sites where we permitted this.
Sure, down off of.
Bradford Street there, that one's all LID, but
You guys did it, I think it was your firm, the other one off of Salem Street, what's the name of it, by the railroad crossing? The old railroad bed? What am I thinking of?
I don't remember that one.
Remember those, we had the swimming pools and the big
Wellington
drainage of the,
Woods?
what's that?
off of Boxford Street, Wellington Woods.
No? Shoot, I can't remember the name of the development.
Sutton Street, you mean? The one behind the airport? That's LID
What's the one that
too.
connects the backside of Bear Hill and comes down and meanders across the, is it Newcastle down there?
Yeah, we didn't do that.
Regency Place?
Regency is what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, I guess the
Regency
difference-
had the Crown and Swales.
Yeah, most of the other LID
Crown.
is all swale along the edge of the road, then directing
Well,
drainage
you didn't have
to
any basins, that was all.
No, there's basins.
There's basins at the beginning of it.
Because there's a
And-
set of catch basins at the front of that site.
That was an LID
Yeah,
park development,
Right.
mostly.
yes,
That's what I was thinking of, Regency.
yep. Yeah, the railroad, you're right, the railroad bed is.
Yeah, it runs behind it, yeah, no.
Yeah, I just forgot
Phil and
all
I
about
are
it. You were
like,
right.
we got it.
That old Joe.
I'm old, I just remember the name of the place, I can remember anything else about it. Swimming pools, railroad beds,
Swimming pools, yeah.
somewhere in town.
Swimming pools right there.
Any more
Yeah.
questions, Doug?
For Marine.
Okay, did you get some questions? You have any questions? You're the abutters, right? Paul?
Hi, I'm Paul Naily. I'm from 7 South Cross Road. I abut Lot 7, and I'm neighbors with Mike, who's down on South Cross Road as well. We were at the planning board meeting last night, so I don't think a lot of the issues that we discussed there are relevant to you, like about traffic and whatnot. But, you know, the concerns that I have that I think are relevant to you are related to the mess that's back there because of the beavers and the wetlands. And Lot 7, like I said, I'm a relative newcomer to the neighborhood. I've only been there 16 years. But I've never seen it, you know, this bad. I appeared before the board, I think, 2 years ago or so, because I have sinkholes in my backyard, and I had to get those filled in. And, I mean, I'm not a civil engineer, but there's not a lot of doubt in my mind that those sinkholes were created because of a change in the water table because of the beaver dam that's back there, the beaver pond. The beaver dam, you know, the beavers come and go, the level of the water changes. Sometimes it dries up, other times it floods. Every spring, my backyard is flooded, nowhere near as badly as Mike's backyard. But, you know, before we move forward with any kind of development, I'd certainly like to see what's going to happen with all that wetland. Because as I understand it, the plan is to develop lots 1 through 7. We're going to donate parcel A, parcel B to the town, and then I guess the town owns that problem. I'd like to hear what the solution to the problem is that you're going to inherit, or, you know, I guess inherit isn't the right word, that you're gonna receive once you accept parcel A's and parcels A and B as part of this deal. And then one of the other things, you know, as I hear more about different plans, I just have more questions. You know, talking about the runoff on the street or the cul-de-sac, whatever the case may be, talking about the winter. And, you know, we're gonna be putting down more compound, you know, more salt, more chemical. That's going to drain into the Mosquito Brook that, you know, directed into Mosquito Brook because of we now have to clear that road, which right now is just a paper street, and, you know, very few people even bother to walk down there unless you have a lot of time to pick ticks. That's pretty much what, you know, that's my concern. I had a lot more concerns about the safety, but I think that's directed at the planning board, which I did last night.
Thank you.
My name is Michael Maroney. I live on South Cross Road. I don't know, I guess, I had pictures last night. You don't have those pictures, right? Oh, do we?
We gave the board the pictures of the beaver dam.
And what about my backyard?
You didn't give those to me.
Well,
You
were
gave
they
those to the
with the,
planning
well,
board.
okay, the
Yeah,
plan,
so
okay.
I may
Okay, so I guess the first question, what? I can pass it on, yeah. The first question I have is, who owns the beaver dam? I mean, is it on Lot 7? Is it on the town property?
It's on this development property currently.
So it's on this Lot 7. And then, you know, I've heard this thing.
There is no Lot 7. It's on the property.
Okay, it's on the property, all right. The other thing is that, you know, so if they do this beaver deceiver, who retains responsibility for that? I mean, it's on, and, you know, I guess, is it on the property that, as Paul said, they're going to give to you?
It's not.
So
If you look at
basically,
parcel A and
okay.
parcel B, parcel A
Well,
doesn't even start until
I guess-
after Lot 7 begins, so I don't see that as being that
You
portion
sent
of the
this
street.
picture. Do you have this picture?
That's the one
Yeah,
Could that-
that shows where the beaver.
Well, I just
dam
would like to get an
is.
idea. I mean, this is my property, the water, and this gives a good idea of how far that water, that's my property. That's not even a bit, I mean, I've never thought I had to
So
take
right,
pictures of
the
it.
beaver,
Pass it down and get it back.
trying
And
to
this
get it,
is,
is
you know, this is the property, so you can see
somewhere
that my
off
house
of
is
Lot 7,
here,
I think, is the
and there's the
development
brook,
goes.
the creek. That's a lot of water to get to my house.
And we're in a drought situation.
We're in a drought, and I mean, I heard someone say, well, it isn't any higher. Well, I go by there every day, you should have been there this winter. Those pink flags were underwater. You know, right now there is a drought, so there isn't, you know, it doesn't look that bad for the water levels, but, you know, just, you know, like I said, go by there every day and see what it looks like. So, I mean, I'm for this project. I don't have a problem with the project, but I mean, I'm just saying I need to make sure that, you know, all this runoff is going to make my situation, I don't know. I mean, like Paul said, a couple of years back I was before this board because I needed to get, you know, $3,000 worth of fill, 8 dump trucks worth from Mr. Breen because of the sinkholes that developed on my property because of this. So, I mean, That's my concern. I just, something needs to be done here, or else, I'm going to have a dock in my backyard.
Well, I just want to let the abutters know, like I said, this is at the infant stage of the subdivision. Like I said, there are no lots, right now it's just a parcel, this is a proposal. And like Mr. Christensen said, they have to go in front of planning and zoning, and so what you see here is not what, might not be reality. So, and we're aware of that's why they hired Mr. Hockman. He's a wetland scientist, and he'll probably answer as many questions as you have right now, but as this evolves, believe me, we have the abutters and the town's best interest at heart.
Good evening. Greg Hockmuth, Williams Inspiragus, here representing the applicant. I think the main goal for everyone here with respect to the Beaver Dam is to get that water flowing again and to have it continue to flow at whatever the normal level is for that reach of Mosquito Brook. We were actually hoping that some abutters would show up tonight because in order for us to get this in sooner than later, we really need some type of an imminent threat to public health. A high water table as a result of a beaver dam with respect to septic systems is generally what you need to get permission for an emergency certification. And I think that's exactly the case here. We were prepared to do a separate filing to propose a beaver deceiver, whether a separate NOI or an RDA, but we prefer to get this in as soon as possible. We've got the name of a couple companies, Beaver Deceivers International, Skip Lyle, and the other one's Mike Callahan from Beaver Solutions. I've been asked 3 different commissions, and those are the 2 names that keep popping up. So we'd like to work with them and hopefully get permission from this commission to get a beaver deceiver in here as soon as possible, without having to file a separate permit application. Would be.
You need to start with
preferred.
Board of Health, obviously, but I think, we'd all be open to looking at it sooner rather than later.
Good.
Well, as Greg has, it's been reinforced, as two abutters is saying, there is an issue there.
There is.
I haven't been out there, Jen's been out there, so there is an imminent issue, and the board, like she says, the Board of Health is the first person you gotta go after. I don't see a problem with the beaver receiver. It's gonna eliminate these people's problems and your problem moving forward in the subdivision, so you know the routine.
And we'll hopefully be able to put your mind at ease with respect to maintenance, who's going to be in charge of this thing, and have something on the record that will explain that to the abutters.
I won't need to get a school here.
No. So that's the goal, and that's all I wanted to say for now. Thank you.
Thank you. So, we need to continue. Your next meeting with planning is the 22nd?
Yes.
Do you want to wait? You want to wait a month and see how you progress with them?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So we need a motion to continue till August 22nd.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And that's unanimous. Thank you.
Did you get the pictures back?
Thank you very much.
Now, for general business, we have 242-1691, request to continue, take care, Greg. Request to continue to August 8th.
So moved.
Which one are you on? Sorry.
Brock, the 114
okay.
sidewalk.
Sorry.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous.
Do you know which one's the plan? I just
Okay,
not
so
labeled,
that
I
the only
couldn't-
continuance I can see here?
Yes, that is.
Okay, next one is, where's Mr. Manzi? We lost him?
He's coming back.
Okay, we'll wait till he comes back. Mr. Manzi's back in the building.
Back in the house.
In the room.
First order of business is 242-628 PCOC request for 58 Meadowwood.
So 58 Meadowwood is a
request for a PCOC. We had them do an as-built plan when they contacted us, and this is it. So the deck on the back was not on the original proposed plan, but none of the appurtenant structures for this development were on the proposed plan. It is on the wall, so you can see the rock wall there, and the deck hangs over, but the footings are on top of the wall. So no footings actually go on the other side of it. Other than that, everything is as built. Obviously, it's within the buffer zone. We recommend issuing the PCOC.
Joe, any questions?
Are we asking for after-the-fact modification for that, or
No,
because
as,
it's
we just,
cantilevered?
we
Because-
just did one recently when Savannah reviewed the file of the Meadowwood subdivision, neither of us having been here. There are no appurtenant structures shown anywhere on the Meadowwood plans. No decks, no walkways, no
Those second means
stairs,
to be grass, nothing.
nothing.
Yeah.
So, but they all have one. So they are, like she said, this one is constructed inside that no disturb wall. But it's impossible to
But no,
think.
but no structure touching the ground.
Excuse me, you were on the commission when this came before us.
God, yeah.
Okay. I remember plans with structures. I believe you when you tell me you can't find them. And they probably were part of those plans that went out on 125 out the back of a dump truck.
Well, we have
in
the
office
record
building,
plan. We
because
have the record plan cited in the order of conditions.
When we originally permitted Meadowwood, and remember that was the story I told you about, we permitted stone walls and they gave us 1,000 feet of pea stone.
There's a real stone wall out there now.
I
Because
believe
we had to define a stone wall.
we had to define it. But my point is, there were detailed drawings somewhere. I believe that we may not have them anymore, but I know they existed because we, we permitted, we were there. We did the site walk.
This is the record plan?
But
Yeah.
anyway, that
Okay.
being said, I guess if we
I
don't
mean,
have
we
them, we don't have them.
have the file, but it
Okay.
doesn't show them. I mean, I can't imagine where the appurtenant structure would have been constructed otherwise, because this house is right up against, as you see, it's right up against, so if they didn't put this out the back, I mean, where else would they have put it?
Right.
Because these all are all right next to each other, too. As you can see, the next lot starts like, how many feet is that?
They're right on top of each other.
6 feet, 5 feet, something like that. 5.5 feet from the property line of the next house. So there were not gonna be any decks on the side. And like Joe said, they all needed a second means of egress, and it is inside the rock wall. So they have no backyards, literally. I mean, you can see in the photo. So I can't imagine that it could be deemed out of compliance. The house itself is built where it was supposed to be.
Who's the engineer of record, by the way? for
Yeah.
that whole-
Yeah, I know.
Nothing's changed.
This is consistent.
We're all sitting here silent. I mean, I guess the reality is just as stated. It's
been the way it
it's in
It is
compliance.
what it is.
Yeah, it's good.
It's in compliance.
There's nowhere else you can go, yeah.
All right, motion,
What do we look for?
PCOC.
I'll move it. I'll move we issue a PCOC.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, and that's unanimous.
In fact, I remember, Louis, we walked out there to do a site walk to inspect the wall.
Yep.
And the backyard boundary line was literally, the wall was it. It was the back, 5-foot setback.
Let's go back before that.
Yeah.
The boundary line was very much in question
Yeah.
way back when, because you remember he stripped all the good loom out of it, hauled the loom away, and then when he reseeded it, he reseeded it with wetland plants. The whole place was a resource.
I remember
Because he
that.
seeded it with the wrong stuff.
I remember
It didn't
that, too.
survive more than one season.
But I remember this was one of those projects where they, it was like a 40B, there were no setbacks.
None.
And so the setback was like 5 feet.
This was the first one we,
Well, you have it as a, what's the no disturb out there? It's a no-build zone of 30 feet? 30 feet. And then, yeah, I mean, I just took the plan down,
Again, it
but
was because This was a waiver.
Is this phase 1 or phase 2?
This was a waiver
This
project.
is in phase 2,
So it was the second 40B this town ever saw. The first one was phase 1.
Yeah,
right, which is
It
just
re-
Buckland, basically, I think.
that's true. I mean,
Yeah.
we hadn't dealt with anything like that before.
And this is fine.
Well, you can't say Merrimack condominiums looks any different, so. Even
No,
though,
I'm not making comparisons, I'm just saying, we,
Must be the name.
we should switch topics and move on to the next one.
Did we vote? We made the motions.
we voted.
You voted.
We voted, yeah, we're done.
We voted.
Next one is 242-140 PCOC request for 43 Vents Way.
So this lot's non-jurisdictional, there aren't any wetlands within 100 feet. I went out to the property and everything was as stated in the plan, so I recommend issuing a PCOC.
Any questions?
No questions here.
No questions.
Okay. Motion?
Move that we grant the PCOC.
Second. Motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. 242-1720 modification request on 33. Wheaton
No, one
West.
more. 242-1709.
Oh,
Excuse me,
nutmeg, I'm
nutmeg,
sorry,
75.
242-1709. PCOC request. Oh, no, that's a COC.
Yeah.
Not for nutmeg.
The work's completed, I went out to the site and the soils are all stabilized, the grass is growing well. The only difference I noted in the plan was the stone retaining wall is shortened from his proposed plan, but that section in front, as you can see where the road is and then the wetlands are across the street, that still was built as planned. And then he does show on the left-hand side, you can see where he put his drainage structure. So he did as-built that. Everything looked good. He removed the erosion controls the day before yesterday. We recommend issuing the COC.
Another great utility. Couldn't get the driveway and utilities out, but we said, yes, you can, and they did.
Yeah.
I remember this one. Good job.
Okay, motion? Or questions, I should say.
None.
Al?
No questions.
Deb? No questions. Doug? Motion?
Move that we grant the PCOC.
Full COC.
Oh, full COC, I'm sorry.
See, you're the one like me. We have a motion and a,
Doug seconded.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. Now we have 242-1720 modification with 21 Big Pool.
Good evening. Maureen Harold, North Environmental Services, here on behalf of the applicant.
Is this one? That's a different one.
I filed a request for an after-the-fact modification for an in-ground swimming pool. The swimming pool itself is actually 6 feet longer, and it shifted closer to the single-family dwelling or further away from the resource area. In addition to that, we're also requesting to expand the paver patio area around the pool, install a fire pit and sitting wall within the buffer zone,
Oh, this is, oh, it does still have the pool house on it. Sorry, I thought I had the wrong.
as well as a fence. The original approval didn't incorporate a fence. And we would also like to install a retaining wall at the rear of the property, and that's located outside of the 50-foot.
So I noted to Maureen that it was my fault, but I did not make them file the after-the-fact filing fee because the pool got farther from the wetland. I just had filed the modification and showed that where the pool is, even though it's slightly bigger, it was practically at the 100 before. They had actually constructed the fire pit area or graded it, so that was after also, but they hadn't constructed it yet, so that was also in the modification. At the time, they had told Maureen that they were gonna remove the pool house as part of these things. So I sort of saw it like weighing out, but as you can see, they've kept the pool house on here, and I didn't get to look at this until today. My only concern is that the prior plan did not propose the 8-foot-high retaining wall that runs 80 feet along the rear property line or the grading. And I started to think that maybe that fell outside of a modification request and needed an amendment. but again, that's up for discussion.
I have a clear overlay of what was approved. If you want to overlay that to the plan I handed out, just to kind of give you an idea of.
Oh, we already did it. All done.
If you line up the BBW flags, you'll get a better sense of the changes that are in front of you this evening.
This is old school, but this is great.
Yeah. I like the overlay.
Look at you.
No, it's,
Look at this.
Did you just whip this up tonight?
Well, yeah, that's where I came from.
Pretty good, put the overlay on.
So as you can see, for the stone pit, fire pit area, that area was expanded as the limit of work from the original permit that the commission issued, slightly expanded. We want to do some additional grading. We'd like to incorporate the retaining wall and expand the patio area.
so your retaining wall is retaining earth on the house side of the wall and drops away away from the house side.
Correct.
This is, you're going to, of course, be submitting some engineered plans to the building department since this is 8 feet high?
Yes, we can do that. That's not a problem. And as the project stands right now is that work has been performed up to the 100-foot. I made it clear to the contractor that no additional work can be performed until we get the commission's blessing.
Joe, any questions? Joe, any questions?
No, I'm awake, I'm just trying to conclude. I don't think I have one. I don't think I have one. I'm just trying to, in my own mind, assess what impact is for runoff. This is ironically, the one I was talking about with the LID drainage, and it doesn't affect that in a negative way, though I completely agree with Jen. I mean, it's an engineered wall, it needs a building permit, it needs to be approved and designed. But that doesn't affect us any, and it's still way outside the no disturb. I shouldn't say way outside, but far enough outside the no disturb. So I don't have any issues.
No?
I agree. The work is outside of the 50. I have no issues.
Everything getting, it's 8-foot wall, but how much are they filling in? On the wall, I can't.
8 feet behind it, they're bringing all that fill in to the backyard. So the yard used to taper, as originally designed, tapered away and gradually sloped towards the back. Now it's, for lack of a better term, it's a flat backyard, and to get that northeast corner grade to maintain flat, you end up being 8 feet above what's already there.
And the backside of the
Thereabouts.
wall, and the backside's gonna be nothing. It's just gonna drop off?
Drop right off to 8 feet down to top of the ground. The general area is 158, but it slopes a little bit away to the property line down to 152.
And there will be a fence between the wall.
A fence between the wall and the top of the wall.
Right.
And in the yard area.
Right.
Looks like the yard area will slope off to the side.
Right.
Yeah.
My concern, I guess, is modifications versus amendments are, if, with DEP, it's the extent of the activity. If it it doesn't change, there's no change in use of the lot, but would it be an exempt minor activity under the Wetlands Protection Act, that wall?
I think they would consider it because we're greater than 50 feet away.
I'm trying to look at it in a more practical way. If this came to us originally as part of the original permit, would we reach a different decision? And I think the answer is no, we'd reach the same decision.
Right. My general rule of thumb for amendment versus modification, and I'm not saying this doesn't comply, is if it doesn't get any closer to the wetland and it doesn't increase the scope of work. So
Well, it does increase the scope of work.
increase the scope of work beyond the original project. So it's still grading for a backyard. And I guess the structure itself doesn't create any more impervious area like a patio or an additional,
If it provides a physical separation.
I'm not trying to convince you one way or the
No,
other. I just
I-
wanted to point out it wasn't in my original analysis of this project when I told her to apply for a modification. And honestly, I don't think you saw the plan afterwards
Right,
either.
the homeowner had decided last minute that they'd like to incorporate a wall, so,
So the only thing that we would discuss differently is, so how do you get additional material in, and what do you need to do to protect the lot any differently than we already have in place because of that additional material being trucked in?
I think we'd have to have them, did they extend that erosion control? Well, it would have to be an extension of the erosion control, which I think, is that what, they already show the silt sock extending. And
Right.
given the scope of work, I think I'd want them to back that with silt fence too, just.
sure, not a
And
problem.
where this is, I don't even know the extent of construction out there. Is the foundation in? Is the house already in?
The house is
Yes.
completely constructed, and I think we signed off on that as part of the certificate of compliance.
Yes, because
Because
they
there
had
was
to
a
come
new
back
order
for
of
the
conditions
pool.
for the pool.
So protecting tracking of material to the street, that country drain, that LID drainage that we've talked about being so wonderful is
There's
now
none
needs
on-
to be protected at a higher
There's
level.
none, I don't think, oh, there is the
Right in the
swale
front,
on the
right?
front of this one.
Right in
Right.
the front, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's
That
already
needs to be protected.
constructed.
The
That's where-
driveway's
Go
in,
ahead, say that again?
the driveway's in, and it's completely paved, so.
Driveway's gonna get destroyed. Because you have to go right in, right on the driveway, right into the.
So let me just say it differently. You bring in truckloads, more than one, many probably, of material, and you're gonna be dumping it, backing in and dumping it up in the area. There's no question access up the driveway and out, you can do some damage. You're also gonna be tracking dirt, so I think protection of that drainage area in the front is needed. I don't know what the depth of cover is to the culvert beneath the driveway. I don't even know the material of that culvert.
So the invert is at 155.2, and the top grade is 154, it looks like.
Right, so
there's-
2 feet.
That can't be. How can invert be lower? How can invert be higher than the top of grade?
It says invert 155.2 and 150,
Big bump in the driveway.
158.
158, sorry.
What size pipe is that?
12-inch.
I don't,
12-inch HDPE
So not only
culvert.
protecting the runoff, but protecting the pipe, because the pipe is
There.
potentially vulnerable to crush.
Plate it,
Hmm?
plate it.
Could, might have to plate it. So I think you need to protect the swales, and you need to protect the pipe, and do something to say about no tracking of material to the street. And I think those are the things that are different than what the original application would have addressed.
Yeah, they're still under construction on various lots, so they are street sweeping and have the culverts, the
Right.
catch basins protected, but, so I guess they're asking for some erosion control up the sides of the driveway and that sort of thing, and then plating the culvert.
Not so much up the driveway, you know, around the drainage facilities, so nothing gets into the,
Well, I mean, if stuff's gonna run off the sides
as
of the
directed by the
driveway.
administrator.
Yeah, I think we just want them to line the driveway with erosion control.
okay. A wattle type?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Well,
No questions, I have none.
I'm still trying to hash out the
It should probably go like up and out.
elevations.
Once they're working at the top.
What are you gonna do on the other side? They got the wall in the back, what's happening on the side? Where the lot 6 is.
It drops down pretty steeply, 158, 156, 54, 52, right to 1. So on the side lot, it's just gonna pitch right to the neighbor.
Right.
Yeah, that's,
You can put a lawnmower on it. No, it's better than
No,
2 to 1.
but where's it
One on-
gonna drain
One on
to?
2.
his water, his brown surface water is gonna drain into the neighbor's yard.
It's no more than what was getting there. In fact,
Oh, that's
the whole
existing?
backyard was draining that way as
Yeah.
originally approved.
I can't see the numbers there.
Yeah.
It kind of drains further back, but in that general direction.
Yeah, in essence, it's actually less drainage you usually get into the side. Yeah, most of it's going to sit right up to the flat area.
It's like it's upside down. Okay, yep, I'm just looking. No. So you're still comfortable with it being a modification request?
It's you who needs to be comfortable, not me.
Yeah, I know.
Well, we want you comfortable.
Yeah, we want you professional. Okay?
I'm
can go
fine.
either way.
I think it, yeah, I'm all right.
I'm inclined to agree.
All right, so motion to be comfortable.
What a wishy-washy bunch of people.
I mean,
I think it's borderline. I do think we've.
You can go either way, really
Yeah,
can.
I'll take it.
Okay. Lou's not comfortable.
Oh,
What's bothering you?
getting in and out and,
I think that the alternative is an amendment, which,
Same end result.
same end result. We're going to but the conditions are actually going to be in the order of conditions versus a document that we're basically going to make them comply with anyway. They're going to have to notify all the abutters again, and so it sort of comes down to, at this point, there is no abutter to the right. It's a lot yet to be developed with an order of conditions of its own. It's more than,
I mean, why, I just always, why put them through it if the modification will give us the same net result? Why do we have to put them through the?
well, I mean, I could see if we thought DEP would want to see the plan, because we were proposing some sort of changes to the lot that were mattered to the resource area. But I think, like I was saying in the beginning, if it could be considered almost an exempt minor activity as an accessory structure more than 50 feet from the wetland, that really only changes grading, then
And
the
things I
answer's
raised
probably not.
Are only temporary impacts.
Right.
If they happen, if we
Temporary.
protect them, they're not even gonna happen to begin with.
I mean,
So I have, protect the swale, plate the culvert, no tracking of material, erosion control, silt sock, and silt fence.
That does it.
And they're still gonna have to apply for a building permit and be reviewed by every other department in town for that building
you're
permit.
gonna be out there anyway, so.
They already monitor for the pool.
So it really sounds like a push to me.
I'm with you.
Does it sound like a push to anybody else?
Yeah.
Sorry.
So what do you need right now?
And a motion to approve
finish
the
asking-
modification with the conditions.
We have to ask our colleagues their questions.
Yeah, Debbie, I'm-
Deb's questions?
No, I don't have any.
Doug?
I hear no questions.
No. The only one who's uncomfortable is Lou.
I'll wait till Lou's.
Speak now or forever hold your peace.
No, I'm not comfortable with it, but that's okay.
Well, no, that's not okay. What would you like to hear?
Well,
What would you like done? 'Cause-
at the end of the wall, where we're extending the wall, it's gonna be exposed by 5 feet, correct? Because it says top of wall, slope wall to meet elevation of 157.5, and on the property line to lot 6 is 152.
It
So
says
you're gonna
top
have-
of wall
You're gonna have a
elevation.
5-foot slope.
Actually, the top of wall is
From the back
150.
151 in that corner.
Yeah.
Right.
Top of the wall is 151, Lou.
151,
Yeah.
okay.
Top of the wall.
So what's the elevation,
And
157?
they want the wall to meet the elevation of 157.
Oh, at the top, see. Okay, up top, it's gonna be 157?
That's where they want it to meet, at that elevation.
Right, so the wall's gonna slope down with the land?
Yes.
If we were to draw a cross-section through we got a top of wall that's flat, and in that final transition, it's sloping down that 5
It's gonna
feet.
slope down,
and
okay.
meeting the existing lot, but that's within a 5-foot distance that they're doing, I think that's what they're
It's not
proposing.
that big.
That's what that note says, I think.
Now, the ledge has already been removed?
It's gonna be buried.
No, it's gonna be buried.
It's gonna be buried, don't take it out.
I'm gonna bury it? I thought it says to be removed.
Portions of the ledge expanded where the pool area was, so portions of it has been chipped away for the installation of the pool.
All right, I'm all set.
You ready for us to offer a motion, Mr. Chairman? I would move that we grant the modification request for 33 Regency Place as proposed with conditions to be imposed by the administrator,
Second.
As discussed here.
as listed here at this meeting.
Protect the driveway culvert pipe.
As long as we're
Erosion
protecting the
controls.
culvert,
Yep, no tracking.
And tracking to the street.
yeah, no traffic.
Is that okay? That's,
That's fantastic.
all right, so that's my motion.
We have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Maureen is happy too.
Well,
Very happy.
I guess this is one of those nights we're making everybody happy, so let's keep rolling.
We must be doing something.
Let's keep doing it. Let's keep
On
doing
to
it.
agricultural leases.
Do you want your overlays back, or?
Sorry.
Do you want the overlays?
We'll keep
Thank
ours.
you for providing
Yeah,
that.
good job with the overlays.
Yeah, very nice.
Let's keep ours. We're gonna draw on it and erase it with dry erase marker. We got one, thank you.
That might have been what won it, the overlays.
All right, and the next one is the agricultural leases. You want to, we have the Chickering Road.
So,
We have a.
We can talk about that after, there's no one here to address that, Chickering Road.
COC request for.
No, we have agricultural leases here.
I know, we'll go back. Are you here for,
yeah, we have one.
They're here for the agricultural leases.
oh, you're here for the agricultural, I'm
they're both
sorry.
here.
We have people here that want to talk about it.
Okay. All right, so let's do the agricultural lease then.
Okay, so,
So I had sent you a revised lease that the town council had commented on, which at the end, it didn't take away anything that you had added, but it did add a lot to the end of the document in the legalese section. With that said, I did forward it, I don't know, did you receive a copy? I know we gave it to gentleman behind you. Oh, because we didn't draft it for the particular property, so I don't know what order, we have individuals here representing, who
So,
are interested in Half Mile Hill and,
I recognize Mr. Nutter, and you are,
Marlene Stasnos Farms.
okay, so, two separate applicants. You both interested in mowing and baling the same parcels?
no.
No.
So the Stasnos is, do Mazarenko?
Yes.
But also have the lease on the cornfield, as we call it, that abuts Ray's Pond, the Ray's Pond area.
Yep.
So if we're gonna discuss that one first,
I just wanted to make sure they weren't
okay,
competing.
no, they're not competing,
Oh, if they-
different properties for both.
If they're not competing, take them in any order you want, ma'am.
Okay,
Let's do that one first.
okay. So can you just come up here so that everybody
You
can
can either
hear?
go to the table or the podium, wherever you're
Whichever
comfortable. We
you'd like.
just need you on the record.
Stand and talk.
All right, that sounds
So,
excellent.
My concern with this, I don't think we've ever had any issues with Mazarenko Farm. It's a, do you do Carter Hill as well?
I don't think so.
I don't know, I'm trying to think of who does.
Cornfield by Ray's, isn't that part of Carter Hill?
No, it's part of Mazarenko.
It's part of Mazarenko, but
That's
there's,
part of the original Mazarenko farm, yeah.
right, the access is off of Great Pond Road though, because there is no
Right.
access
That's
any
correct.
longer by Ray's
That's
Pond.
correct. Unless we
Right.
build an access road.
Right, thanks
Because
to
one
the Beavers.
existed when we bought the property,
Right,
just for
but
the record.
The Beavers did away with that
The
one.
Beavers and many other things, but we absolutely, there was originally an access road that the Mazarenkos used.
So the Stasnoses have other access off
Yep.
of Great Pond Road.
Yep. You go through the old Brown property?
Yes, sir.
Right.
Okay, yep.
But my concern with that one is it's supposed to be in corn there's some kind of USDA thing that we get every year asking if the field is still in corn. I don't know who we respond to say that I don't think the field is still in corn.
We're not required to keep it in corn.
Okay,
It's just, apparently when the last annual report, they send their annual report out all the time. Everybody that is crazy enough to answer it will keep getting it. And they just ask what the current use is, what the yield is, what you're doing. They're just looking for statistics.
okay.
So,
So what is currently being planted on that field?
We rotate the crops on a regular basis so that we don't deplete the soil of any one vitamin or mineral that crop does take. As you know, every crop takes something different from the soil. So we rotate it so that we're constantly giving back to the earth. I think right now it's in pumpkins.
Pumpkins.
Yep.
So we do have a lease agreement, and I think part of is these leases aren't being kept up to date. And it's difficult to contact farmers because when we're looking to contact them, they don't
Farming time
respond.
of year.
So we do need to get a new lease. We can send that to you and we can discuss. I think, do we have contact
Yeah, is the
information?
email I have okay to contact you?
Okay. So I think, Al, that's where I'll turn it over to you as to how we want, I think we were,
Well, I know the Stasnos family, and you guys have been there probably 20 years now.
It seems like that forever.
Yeah, took it over completely when Richard Rogers stopped. 'Cause
Right.
Richard worked it for a while.
Yeah.
And they follow regular agricultural practices. They know what they're doing. They know how to test the soil, the correct way to till it. You till across the hill rather than up and down when it's appropriate.
Sure.
Yeah.
well, I think we did.
We call it conservation tilling.
Right.
We
So
did
we
talk to
don't
Mr. Stasno some number of years ago. He was in here and did agree that he would till the farm. I guess it's just more important that the license be up to date. There's license fees that are varied by acreage. They're not excessive, but I think the commission's desire is to have these up to date. And I think, did we make them?
What were the changes we made? I think one of the changes was we wanted,
Well, I'm showing you right now that all of the changes you asked for are made. This is the Half Mile Hill lease.
yeah,
So it's slightly different, but you can see where town council added these things that came from the state's agricultural license about risk and indemnification, again, insurance,
yeah.
non-discrimination notices. These are sort of things that weren't in the original leases, which you guys probably drafted back in the, I don't know, 80s, 90s.
My only concern that I had when you and I talked was the term of the lease and the payments to the town.
Right, so the payments are listed in here, and I think it's based on $25 per acre. This is the Half Mile Hill lease, and like I said, it's for, I think, $360. I think your lease is probably, Mrs. Stasno, is probably smaller.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so it wouldn't
That
even
doesn't
be
sound
that.
right.
And then the term of the lease, I think we made 3 years. Yes, and terminates 3 years, so.
Under license fees, we have fees for the 3-year term shall be paid in advance. So what we wanted to get a minimum of 3-year contracts out of anybody that's farming out the property in town.
Okay.
And have them pay that upfront.
Okay.
It's not a big fee, and we would rather get it, rather than have staff chasing everybody around every year.
Mm-hmm.
It's easier for our staff that way.
Sure, but is a farmer's point of view, we've planted all our money right now,
Yeah.
and it's hard to come up with monies up front at the moment.
Okay.
But once things get underway here,
Yep.
hopefully things will keep growing, and we will have some funding then.
Okay, so we can work with them on that,
Yeah.
since they've been there anyway.
Thank you.
We'd like to think you're gonna stay with us.
Thank you. We have a 4th-generation farmer taking over, so we're hoping he's going to stay with us.
So that'll work, and, yeah, if you can just coordinate the completion of the contract with
Sure.
Savannah.
Yep. Send me things and we'll.
Definitely.
See if anybody has any questions of you.
Jen, the land that the Stasnos are farming, they're really concerned for bird nesting, any time limitations that we're concerned with on
Not on that
not
particular
that
parcel. You don't know anything, you don't mow anything on the other side of Mazarenko, just.
I don't think so.
No, that's what I
think
thought maybe you did, I'm not honestly now sure who does Carter Hill, but.
We're just right behind the houses
Right behind the
there.
houses. So they're just the tilled field, so this is not a hay.
In the past, the hay on Carter Hill in the past used to be taken by either Richard Rogers or George Barker.
Barker.
And I have no idea if either of them are taking the hay or not off.
Oh, someone's definitely taking the hay. It's usually very late in the season that it gets done, but it gets done.
Yeah.
But that's the area we're concerned with Habitat, and not this particular
Not this
parcel.
particular
Okay.
parcel, no.
They're tilling, and there won't be any bottlenecks anywhere they are.
No. So, but we
So there's
do need to.
No restrictions of timing with any of the.
There shouldn't be on that. There shouldn't be.
Yeah. I'm sure we can figure out who's mowing it, but needless to say, that's not the one that this is concerned
We
with.
can find out, yeah, I bet you in 2 phone calls we can find out.
Okay.
and take care of it, no problem.
Okay, so I think we're set with this. We'll,
Well, I don't know if anybody else has any questions.
Well, thank you very much.
I do think at some point, you can coordinate with Savannah, but we'd like to take a visit out, maybe once a
Sure.
year or two, just to see what's going on.
Come take a look at the beautiful pumpkins that are growing out there now. They're really,
Excellent.
they're coming along great.
Savannah, you got a field trip coming then?
I'm excited. Can't wait.
All right, good.
We'll put the gator in the back.
All right,
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks very much.
That's a whole different meeting in South Florida.
It's like, wait a minute, where are we going? Where are we going?
They're talking about a ride.
Gator.
Going for a ride in a John Deere Gator.
Yeah.
That would be great.
You don't want to go for a ride with.
So the next, we did have, in speaking of interested parties, if we're going to talk about Half Mile Hill now, we did originally, there is someone currently who has mowed the hill without a contract, but has mowed it for the past couple of years. We did send the contract to both Mr. Davidowitz and Mr. Nutter. Invited both to attend the meeting tonight. So Mr. Nutter is here, and I don't know what that's, I'll leave it up to you at this point.
Look, I can introduce Josh. I know him. Josh Nutter, seated. So Josh is expanding his farming operation in North Andover, and they've taken over the old Arnold Stork farm, which is recently occupied by the Hart family. It's a 15-acre farm off of Salem Street in Marble Ridge, and it's the one, there's a power station. And so Josh has just taken over that, and he's harvesting over there, and he had told me that he was interested in bidding on Half Mile Hill, so I introduced him to Jen, and Jen thought he should come in and address the commission and talk about what his plans are and how he intends to accomplish the mission up there, so it's all yours, Josh.
So, we raise horses in North Andover, 121 Great Pond Road, my wife and I, and local hay is harder and harder to get, so I'm just trying to, if anything's available, like Half Mile Hill, I'm trying to pursue that, and, you know, we farm with natural organic fertilizer, horse manure, not really any commercial stuff, and so I'm just interested in the lease, and I know there's some areas of detail that have to do with the bird nesting and the timing, and I think that we can handle that, so I'm okay with what was proposed for the lease.
Any questions, Joe?
No, it's all pretty straightforward.
Do you have any questions, Kevin?
So Josh, specifically, you've read this document, okay?
Yeah.
And the area of concern the biggest area of concern that we had because of that hill is the grassland species and the prohibition between May 15th and August 15th.
August 15th, yeah.
No problem with that, right?
No, no. I mean, I don't think even if there was any leeway in changing the time, you know, taking it after August 15th with everything else that I have to do is,
You wouldn't get an extra cutting out of it.
no. Well, it's not that, it's just the other areas of hay that I do, I probably won't get there till August 15th, so.
Yep. That's a good late crop.
And the lease is driven just on per acre, not per production, right?
Right.
So if he chooses to not produce it, it's
Well,
his
so-
call, I suppose.
Well, so we that's why we talked about, the term of license. We're looking for a 3-year term, and that's why we were asking for the fee to be paid in advance, because it's, previously, we went on an annualized basis, and half the guys we couldn't find, or they wouldn't return the phone calls.
Yeah, well, for this particular, Mr. Davidowitz has hayed it for the past number of years. More recently, we've had to be calling him late season to say, are we going to get it hayed? Because it hasn't happened. So we did invite him again to attend tonight and sent him the same lease. And at least he said he was interested, but I don't.
Total value of the lease is how much?
I think on this, it's $360 per year.
Per year, so way below any public bid threshold.
Yeah.
They were both invited, there was notice out there. If 2 people came here, we'd be talking to 2 people to strike a deal, and the other person had the opportunity, I think he let that pass.
I mean, that would be my opinion.
It's always been my opinion when I
The invitation was extended.
Yeah, yeah.
Savannah and Jen extended the invitation.
You know, if this was a valuable lease that you had to put out to bid, it's a different animal. This is not that.
We, you know, this is beneficial to the applicant, but it's also beneficial to us, because our goal, since we took custody of that hill, since we took title to that hill, part of the mission is to keep it open and keep it in a grass species to encourage the open field nesting birds.
Habitat.
We didn't want it to go back to woody vegetation, and if we don't have guys that are willing to come in and cut it and mow it.
5 years. Right? It's taking old.
It'll be woody vegetation in 3, and it'll be, you know, unusable in 5.
Yeah.
It'll revert to forest in no time, so.
What is the, in detail on the buffer zone, how close for those maintenance purposes after I'm in the clear August 15th? After we take that cut, is there maintenance mowing that I can do against the wood line, or is that discouraged in this situation?
You can't change, I think there's something in here about the wood line.
I think there was like a 400-foot, I might have misread.
No, so the 400-foot wooded buffer to the lake, you can't.
To the lake, okay.
Right, so we're talking about the wooded area that exists
You're
as a
talking on the other
buffer.
side of the field?
Yeah, but edge maintenance would be appreciated.
You can edge, if you're looking up the hill, you can edge to the left side.
Yeah.
Down to the nursery school.
Okay,
You can do edging over there.
okay.
No problem. You just
So
can't go over the other side where the lake is.
Right, and some time ago, Mr. Rockwood was
Yeah.
paying the left side of that field, and I
Yeah.
think he's since told us that he wouldn't be doing that anymore.
Is that
Yeah,
the fellow that mows the small patch up near the road by the horse barn?
He may do that still, but I don't think, because I think he has an agreement with Edgewood, but I don't think he's any longer doing any portion of Half Mile Hill. So there's the little bit that goes up on the left side
Yeah.
where the power line easement
Yeah.
comes through, and then there's the big right side.
The area covered under this is clearly defined. There's no,
We have a map as
there's
well.
no future conflict if someone else comes in and starts, I mean, there could be
Well,
a conflict.
I was
but-
surprised that Mr. Davidowitz and Mr. Rockwell had some sort of unwritten agreement about who was out there, and we didn't even discuss, that's why it's important to have these lease agreements, because
Well, that's how farmers work.
we don't really know who's doing what and when, and if it isn't happening, who do we call, you know? This
You
is-
know, the big problem is, and you've seen it out on Foster Street, when certain properties change title, whoever was cutting it keeps on cutting it.
That's right.
Regardless that
Well-
there's a new owner, somebody like when.
We're gonna rely on you to get in touch with whoever's doing Foster Farm, because we've
I
been
got him.
unsuccessful.
He lives 2 doors away from me, so I can
Right.
get him. But, actually, I know how to find Josh too.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I can get him. It's just,
Okay.
that's one of those things you kind of, that's why I suggested a 3-year term, because
Yeah.
I don't want to chase anybody around either.
No, and I can pay, when do you, is the
Well,
payment?
when you sign the lease agreement, if that's what the commission's desire is, you
Okay.
would just pay at that time.
Sure.
So I guess now that's up to us. How do you want to handle it? Do you want to vote on it tonight, or?
If you're gonna
what-
issue the lease, have someone sign the lease, I would just issue the lease to them, and we'll conduct the paperwork for you.
Yeah, but I want to see if the,
Yeah.
like,
What is council, I'm just want to make sure we do it right. Care and custody of the land is ours.
Yep.
Some land ownership is ours as well, but sometimes the ownership
I'm
is the
sorry,
town.
we have care, custody, and control of this parcel.
And control, so we have the authority to enter into leases.
yeah.
We have always, yeah, on this.
So we have always, but does town council now agree with that, or we have,
She didn't disagree, she had issues with the license itself.
so is the motion to authorize the chairman to execute, because we shouldn't be authorizing you to execute it.
So no, the lease is just signed by, I mean, there's certain things he'll need to provide about insurance and whatnot, but,
Well, the first,
oh, I'm sorry, the commission does sign.
As a whole,
but the
we
first
sign.
thing we should be talking about is, we have one applicant in front of us for this parcel. The other one didn't show.
Right.
So,
His loss. That's my
I
opinion.
mean,
You only have one applicant.
so my opinion is,
Yeah, it should
the
be an
commission,
applicant.
can vote tonight to award the contract to Mr. Nutter based on the fact that he's here.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Who voted? I'm sorry, motion?
I move, Deb seconded.
Deb
We all unanimous.
It was unanimous vote.
We
Congratulations.
work fast.
You should
Thank you very much. It's getting
probably
that
do the same for the Mazarenko property.
time. Right.
We will.
Motion, done.
Done.
Doug motion seconded and voted for everybody?
Yeah, he did.
Al
It's just the way it handled.
Okay.
It's just the way.
That was Doug, Deb, unanimous.
That was Doug was on the move, there was no stopping him.
He's ready.
So,
So we can sign the signature pages and we'll get the licenses.
get everything to them so
Once
they
you've
can
signed
get
it,
going.
then they can sign it.
Yep.
And then they have to supply the certificate of insurance.
Yep, that's not an issue.
Right. And it, I don't know if you saw it, not the end of his additional insured on the binder.
Yep. Liability, we have a blanket policy.
Yeah, but we have, when you give the insurance binder to her, there's a block on the bottom of the binder,
Yeah.
and it says additional insured. You have to put town and not the end.
We
Can
can
we-
go print them before the end.
Jennifer, can we sign the back of this
Yeah,
now?
we'll either sign those or we'll go print a clean copy downstairs. Yeah, are they good?
Yeah,
Okay.
so you can just grab two basic.
Well, no, but I'm just saying the date winds up being on the next side if you look at those.
Oh, I see it.
There should be 3 original
We can
copies.
at the end.
3 originals.
Whichever way you want to do is fine. Any way you want to do it.
I can have them get me all the documentation, sign them, and then I'll bring them to the next meeting to be signed.
That's the best bet.
Done deal.
So I will furnish my signed copy to you, which you will take to the board.
Correct.
Okay,
We'll get it done. You'll be able to get to work.
okay.
Very good.
Get some fuel.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
All right, the next one is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Is 242-1045, request, it's a COC request, but it's being, the bond is in the process of being seized.
Which one, Mr. Chairman?
So this is the high
One
school.
under agricultural lease. It's
So
the
you
high school.
asked me to go to town council to see what the process would be to initiate using the bond to get an as-built plan. So the first step that we need to do, there's a letter in front of you that town council drafted, and she recommends that you vote on, to find that the contractor, John T. Callahan and Sons, Inc., this is to issue the letter, failed to complete the work secured by the performance bond, and then vote to send a letter from the chair giving Mr. Callahan 14 days to submit the requirements for his COC, after which we can present notice to the treasurer seeking to use the bond to complete the obligations under the OOC. And that's all drafted in front of you.
So what do you need, a motion?
A motion first to find Mr. Callahan and Sons failed to complete the work secured by the performance bond.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. You know, I was thinking about this. I think you're out of business.
That may be, but we still need to do
14
the
days.
formality.
If they don't exist, they don't respond, then we seize the
I
bond.
think Amesbury High School put them out of business.
It's okay.
So the second would be to authorize the
Process.
chair to sign the letter in front of you, giving Mr. Callahan 14 days to submit the requirements for a COC.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous. And last on the agenda is a emergency cert for 70 Liberty Street.
I asked someone to come and represent this project. I didn't really expect that anybody would. The Beaver Deceiver is, if you know, the big pond out at, off of Liberty Street. This, I don't even know if it's the stream that comes in or out, because I haven't been there, but the Board of Health has been out there last year. It was determined.
Middleton line?
Yes.
Okay.
That a beaver deceiver was not appropriate for this particular location with Mr. Callahan. They've since gone to engage a trapper, so they want to breach some of the, we need to approve the breach of the dam to attract the beavers. I've informed them that this is not a long-term solution to this problem,
Just gonna
but
rebuild.
it certainly is within their rights, and the Board of Health is willing to issue the trapping permit. I just wanted to point out to them, because I think they want the breach of the dam to solve their flooding problem, and that's not what this can do. This is just mainly a breach to attract the beavers, and they can do their trapping. So just looking back at some of the other emergency certs that we've issued, we've allowed hand breaching of the dam in increments up to the extent of 3 feet wide by 2 feet deep to keep the water flowing. He then came back and said he wanted 2 feet wide and 4 feet deep, which I view as a means to potentially cause failure of the dam by
That's catastrophic.
catastrophic.
I don't know about that. I don't know.
It's still pretty,
I've
it
seen
creates a sluice, and it's gonna, I don't know what this,
It's gonna, you know,
it's
it's
gonna
not
start
gonna be
washing
catastrophic
out.
like that, but if it's got that much water
They'll-
behind it, it's gonna blow wide.
They'll repair that in 12 hours.
Well, if it doesn't blow first. But again, I don't want to do anything.
No, I'm
We-
not, we're good.
I've issued, I think, did I print the conditions? They're on the top there, Doug, I can see them. You have what our general conditions have been to others, so I'm fine with the 3 foot by 2 foot, that's
How
what
high is the total impoundment now?
I don't know.
So if
No
they
one's-
want to remove 4, they're either removing it all the way down to the ground, and it's at least 4 feet, that's still a hell of a lot of water. But the reality is, if they're removing 4 feet, the dam's probably 6 to 8 feet high.
If they want to canoe me out there and we'll
No, we'll
talk
get
about
Savannah
it.
get some scuba gear, we'll make it dive.
Actually, I'll
see
go-
Savannah swimming
listen,
across the
I'll go out
pond.
there too. Yeah, I'll go out there and be a forward observer. That would be cool. I'd do that. I'll volunteer for that job.
I don't know how clear the water would be, but
I just, listen, it's not a big deal. Get out there and get it done.
DCR has granted permission via email that they can trap on their property.
It's DCI's property.
Yes,
Oh, the trapping area would be.
correct.
The dam is on someone else's private
The
property?
dam is on DCR property as well.
Oh, perfect. Perfect.
Did
but
DCI
the-
grant permission to not only trap, but to also breach the dam or lower the dam?
They've authorized whatever's going to happen to occur on their property. I can make sure that
DCI
we...
just rather not deal with it themselves.
Well, I mean, anybody who causes downstream flooding is going to have some serious issues, you know.
there's a lot of water.
It's pretty flat down there though, too, though, right?
Yeah, it must be out of the pond, so I didn't really pay much attention to what was the other way. The houses on Liberty Street are on the pond. We have some nice docks.
Okay, so what do you want, just what you want, 2 feet by 4?
3 feet wide by 2 feet
She
deep.
wants 3 by 2.
Okay,
At first, he emailed back that that would be fine, and then he came back with the 2 feet wide by 4 feet deep, which I just couldn't envision as a breach that's just letting water cascade over to attract the beavers. That sounded like something they were doing to,
It'll just get them there faster.
again, I don't see this as a permanent solution to this problem.
Because as the water level, as the lodge loses the water level, and they're unable to enter and exit the lodge underwater, they'll be out there in no time to get it fixed. The minute that happens, they'll come in like gangbusters. Because that's what draws them, is when their lodge is exposed.
And the sound of running water, which
Well,
they hate.
everybody
That's what
says it's the
stops.
sound. Everybody says it's the sound, but believe me when I tell you, the lodge, they have to be able to enter and exit the lodge underwater, or the coyotes will pick them off.
Yeah, the sound of the running water is what causes them to select
the
the site
flow.
to stop the dam.
Yeah, they might-
And that's when they build the
the flow,
lodge.
too, I
Once
know.
they're there, you're absolutely right.
According
Yeah,
It's
they-
protection.
The
from-
bylaw
They see the water dropping, they're
There's
out
a
of
reason
there.
why it's in the middle of the impoundment.
All we're doing is issuing an emergency cert to allow them to attract the beavers.
What do you need us to do?
Vote on the emergency cert, and
So
you're
moved.
going to sign it.
Second.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that's unanimous.
Al, how many beavers are in the lodge?
Well, there can be as many as 12.
A pair of beavers can produce up to 8 offspring, at least half of which will survive, and they reach breeding maturity within 6 months. So the original pair within 1 year is 32,
32?
if they
It's
all
possible, yeah,
survive.
it's
If they all
possible,
survive.
yeah. And if the breeding pair is big enough,
Yeah.
they can expand this, they can double the size of their lodge and the dam, because they can move bigger objects.
And we have a decision,
Right, this is the amendment
Are we
that,
talking about that other thing that we talked about today?
that's the last thing, but.
That we were
have-
gonna talk about an EO?
I sent, yes, but we'll, an EO?
EO.
Oh, the EO we haven't issued that today.
The one you gave me a picture of
Right,
someone
we'll issue that tomorrow, but I'll sign
committing
it
a
for all of
violation in the
you.
process.
Yeah,
She has
I,
action photos of violations taking place.
action photos, we weren't allowed on the property at 70,
The landowner told him to hit the road, but
79
they took
Forest,
pictures of the whole thing.
79 Boxford Street,
Get her a drone.
constructing something at the end of the
Big pictures of
driveway.
the guy.
We came to the property, he had already kicked off in a butter.
Nice
so-
guy.
So we didn't go on the property, we took photos from the street, but he's clearly building something adjacent to the wetland.
I have one of the action
He told
photos
us
here.
not to come on the property, so we took photos of license plates, people on the property, the construction, and we'll issue an enforcement order tomorrow.
What
There
are
was-
they
It
building?
can't be wet, look at all those pipes.
Looks like
There was no,
It looks like maybe a driveway
there was no,
extension.
there was no cooperation taking place, and Jen and Savannah couldn't, they were told to stay off. The reporting party was kicked off the property, then They went to do
somewhat
an
forcefully shoved off the
Yeah,
property.
the reporting party was...
Forcefully?
Yeah, but not them.
Not
them.
us.
There was a
We
neighbor,
were off.
who reported to them, went to the property, confronted the workers,
Yeah.
and he was physically forced off the property. So he called the town. This looks like somebody that might have been in the business a little once upon a time.
Wow.
He looks like he might have been a paver once upon a time. So,
Hey.
I'm just saying, pretty
Whoa.
sure I've seen him before. Yeah, yeah. So, anyway, Jen and I were talking this afternoon, and she brought the story to my attention. I had asked her to actually collect as much data as she could and possibly go to the police department as well
Yeah.
to get a parallel investigation going, but she's kept it in conservation as of right now.
It'll be similar, we'll issue fines, so there could be civil penalties if they're not paid.
But she got plate
Usual.
numbers, so the good thing about getting the plate numbers is we'll be able to get the names. You know,
Wow.
this won't be a mystery.
Wow.
But I mean, physical is, you're crossing
Yeah, that was a
the line.
whole,
You're crossing the line.
Yeah.
Well, he wasn't
it wasn't,
physical with our people.
we never went on
He was physical with the
property.
neighbor.
The neighbor.
The neighbor went over and the neighbor was forced off the property, so, okay, whatever.
If
That's-
well, I shouldn't tell you, but if anybody ever gets physical with you guys, you
well-
call the cops.
No, they know what to do. They know.
Immediately.
Call Al.
Savannah told the abutter that he, of course, had the right to do that as well, but that's,
We can discuss that law after.
okay. So we,
In New Hampshire, maybe, but you're in Massachusetts. There's no castle law here.
we will issue that enforcement order first thing tomorrow morning.
You're gonna issue, now, I'm just asking, you're gonna issue an enforcement order that not only calls for cease and desist, you're gonna start fines immediately today?
Immediately,
Today?
correct.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
And for every day thereafter where the violation exists.
I just wanted to, get it out there and see.
No, if we're gonna get that kind of person, we gotta reward him.
We don't even think it was the homeowner.
Really?
I
The
think,
abutter didn't think it was the homeowner.
we don't even think it's the homeowner, which is why she got the license plates.
So hopefully more to come soon. But we do have
Stay
the
tuned to the adventures
amendment
of
for
Jen and Savannah.
Hillside.
Good thing I'm going. Wait a
Savannah's
minute,
gonna have a
take
wild
ride.
week, that gator ride, scuba diving.
Hey, listen,
We're gonna keep you
where
busy.
else,
I love everything.
where else can you have this much fun as part of your job, right?
Revere Beach
And
with piping
variety.
plovers. But that's a whole nother
I've
story.
had some,
Are there piping plovers on Revere Beach? I find that hard to believe.
No.
tons.
Really?
Are they really?
On Revere Beach?
We had 24 pairs.
Really?
Well, Revere and Winthrop.
Yeah,
combined,
yeah.
so,
Yeah,
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Because my son just
That's
brought
good.
the sand off for the sand sculptures.
Oh, he brought it up?
They get 2 rocks,
Yeah.
but we truck it for them.
Ah,
I didn't go this year.
What else?
Amendment for 40 Hillside.
We just have a decision.
No, there's an
An
amendment.
old one.
It's the amendment for 40 Hillside. So last, we issued the permit for the new patio, paver patio, walkway, block retaining wall, fire pit, and landscape plantings, and the after-the-fact approval of a couple minor deviations. This also contains the language requiring them to come to us to get the
Trees.
trees.
Yeah, because I don't want to categorically approve the trees.
Hold on, I gotta find where I put that
Categorically?
condition.
What do you want me to say?
Categorically?
I think that was the proper use.
Yeah, I think so, too.
I'm pretty sure you got it right there, Counsel.
Yeah, I know. I was just reiterating that fact.
Sounded like a very corrective parental tone.
Because I'm not a big fan of that tree.
Condition 48 is the one you're looking for. The applicant's request to remove storm-damaged trees resting in and around the existing pond requires further information. Trees requested to be removed shall be reviewed on-site with the Conservation Administrator and the findings reviewed with the Conservation Commission at a public meeting prior to removal. Any removal shall occur under frozen ground conditions. I think that was your direction.
The decision is all the same anyways.
No,
This is amended to update.
That's the only thing you amended, was just the tree thing.
Right, also, all the record documents submitted are in the beginning. The scope of work has been expanded, and all this gets approved and signed off and sent to DEP as well.
All set?
All set.
Any questions, Doug?
No questions.
Motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous.